6 o'clock. Good morning for the 104.5 The Zone Studios. I'm Will Bowling. The Tennessee Titans have a new left tackle. Former Steeler Dan Moore gets a reported 4-year deal worth $82 million, with $50 million guaranteed and $30 million in 2025. Moore's average annual value of $20.5 million ties him as the 8th highest paid left tackle in the NFL, according to Over the Cap. Multiple reports say that means Titans' second-year left tackle, J.C. Latham, is now their right tackle. The Titans are also adding linebacker help, signing Broncos linebacker Cody Barton on a 3-year, $21 million deal. Barton was Denver's second leading tackler with 106 tackles last season. Quarterback dominoes begin to fall yesterday. The Seattle Seahawks have found their replacement for Geno Smith, agreeing to a 3-year, $100.5 million deal with former Minnesota Vikings quarterback Sam Darnold. Justin Fields will sign a 2-year, $40 million contract that includes $30 million in guarantees with the New York Jets. And former Jets quarterback Zach Wilson, he reached an agreement on a 1-year, $6 million fully guaranteed deal that could grow to $10 million with the Miami Dolphins. For all your Fat Nation repair and your waterproofing needs, you need to visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone. And we are brewed up by Scooter's Coffee on a brand new morning right here on 104.5 The Zone. There is a ton to react to in the National Football League, and we got 4 hours to do that with you right here. No Ramon today. Well, he'll be back with us tomorrow. You've got myself, Will Bowling, Kayla Anderson, Jay Hawk, Justin Hawkins behind the glass, 615-737 1045 on your Tuesday, March the 11th. We thought that the Tennessee Titans wouldn't be super active in free agency. Perhaps we thought wrong. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are we doing?
We're doing good. Yeah. Not super active, but not inactive. Let's just put it there.
Certainly more active than I thought they would be on day one.
Yeah. I mean, they got a left tackle, which we'll discuss in a bit. I know people have mixed feelings on that one. And a linebacker, which maybe it's not the name that you thought would be coming here, but that is almost what we warned some people about coming into free agency this year. It's not necessarily going to be the big names that are out there, the front runners in terms of free agency that the Titans are going to go to get. It's going to be some of those guys that you might have to go look up, do a little bit of research on, look at a little bit of film. And then you might say, okay, I get why maybe they added that. But we'll discuss all that today and make you maybe even believe a little.
We certainly will. Dan Moore, the left tackle. Ramon has thoughts that we will give to you in a big game of telephone. You will hear his thoughts into a microphone on this show tomorrow. It is funny. He's talked a lot about Dan Moore coming to the Titans.
He has.
Over the last 2 years.
Yeah.
When they drafted Broderick Jones from Georgia, when they essentially tried to replace him, and he just got a lot better. This is another example of Ramon just getting his friends to come to the Tennessee Titans.
Man, he's just, I mean, I feel like you talk about telephone. Maybe there's a thing at telephone. He just calls up the Titans and says, hey, look, these are some guys that I think you should look at with the Steelers. We've had,
Bud
Joshua
Dupree.
Dobbs. Yeah, Bud Dupree,
You had Ola Adeni, Josh Dobbs,
Okay, yep.
Dan Moore now
Obviously,
out of
Mason
that
Rudolph.
list, Mason Rudolph. Yeah,
Look at that.
It's the Tennessee Ramones friends.
A straight shot to Nashville,
That's
baby,
exactly
from
right.
Pittsburgh.
Exactly right. I am a little concerned, though, like the screen time for all of us is going to be significantly higher, I feel, this
Yes.
week, considering the amount of refreshing and the amount of, again, time that X, and again, we prefaced yesterday, when we talk about it poorly, it's X.
Yes.
When we compliment it or say we're using it, it's Twitter. I just had to, the old-fashioned way, just pop on ESPN to wait for live updates.
I did
yesterday.
too, Will. I was actually, when I got straight home, because I'm like listening to our shows as I'm going home, and then I'm doing right what you just said you do. You turn on the TV because Twitter was up and down, up and down, up and down.
Yeah.
And even the main shows, like I was watching Pat McAfee for a second too before the NFL special for free agency started up. And they were even like going on, what's the Instagram one? Threads.
Yeah.
Because Adam Schefter was still posting to Threads. So then I was getting updates. I updated myself on Threads too, so I could get those updates from Adam Schefter during that time. It was wild yesterday. But that you'd think technology in 2025 would be figured out, but clearly it wasn't.
Well, when the guy that runs it's an idiot, that usually hurts. But
yeah, he's trying to run the world right now, right?
Exactly. So that certainly doesn't help. But it was very interesting, though. It did feel very 2006. Just tuning into like Sports Center to learn what the news was.
For sure.
I kind of enjoyed it.
No, I did too. I thought they
Felt like I was a kid again.
They do a great job with the NFL Live in general, but they do the specials, and I actually enjoy listening because I love hearing the different viewpoints of everybody and what they're hearing and what quarterbacks they think should fit where, the Titans are still without a quarterback.
Yes, they are. Joining a very crowded club of teams that don't have a quarterback. Powder dry. It's March 11th. We don't play football until September. It's going to be all right, everyone. Going to be all right. They will find a quarterback. They will have someone be behind an offensive line of 5 people. That will include J.C. Latham at right tackle and Dan Moore at left tackle. That was the big one that really broke first yesterday. The left tackle market is absolutely bonkers. I mean, absolutely insane. We're going to get into some of our best and worst moves around the NFL. I'll go ahead and spoil that both of mine are left tackles. The best thing that happened yesterday and the worst thing that happened. And the fact that a backup in Kansas City in Jalen Moore can get 2 years, $30 million. Guy who has 12 career starts tells you all you need to know about why Dan Moore got so much money from the Tennessee Titans.
That's the thing I think people forget about in terms of offensive line and specifically the tackles is there's not a ton of them out there. And so when you are specifically looking for a guy like the Titans were, and they clearly had the thought process in mind that they were going to switch J.C. Latham over. We've talked about that possibly being the case, but I'll be the one to admit on this. I didn't think that they were going specifically for a left tackle in free agency. But that's what you have to do, especially the left tackle position. It's more of a premium price. So I know people are a little bit mad because they paid for him, but he's, it's a 3-year contract.
4-year deal.
4-year deal. Yeah. He's going to be your starter. It's never perfect in terms of stats, but they needed that. And now they can switch over J.C. Latham to where he played when he was at Alabama.
I think the thing that Ramon has always taught us, and I remember telling me like as soon as I started working here, is that a 4-year deal is often a 3. A 3-year deal is often a 2. A 5-year deal is often a 3. Even a 6-year deal is often a 3 or 4. Especially when you are not paying a quarterback right now. A lot of what you're going to see the Titans do will have a lot of cash and a lot of money on the front end, right? So certainly makes sense the way they set this up. 4-year deal worth $82 million, $50 million guaranteed, $30 million in 2025, $50 million in cash over the first 2 years for Dan Moore, who, again, we'll give you the analysis from Ramon, who knows a lot more about O-line than we do and most anyone talking about this. But a guy who is coming into his prime, which, Morgan Moses would have been great. I think Morgan Moses would have been a lot more cost-effective and maybe more what we thought they were going to do cost-wise.
Yeah.
But the beauty of Dan Moore is you could have him and J.C. Latham here for 6, 7, 8 years if it really does work out the way you hope it does.
And the big thing about Dan Moore, too, is I think people maybe assume when you are getting a tackle in free agency, a lot of them are older. And let's just be admitted of that, is that a lot of them are older. Dan Moore's 26 years old.
Right.
I mean,
it's
he
a
is
luxury.
Young. So
totally. You
exactly are right, Will, when it comes to the future of this line, it's not going to be just for a year. It's going to be for 4 years or more. And here's the other thing. He's still now considered a veteran, though, because he's played a lot of games in terms of that spot.
Missed 2 starts in his entire NFL career.
Yeah, that's good.
Significant.
Solid.
Clearly, Brian Callahan and Bill Callahan and the organization just took it personally how bad they were up front last year. It's like, look, even if we have to overpay, we're not going to have one position totally torpedo our offense like the right tackle position did last year. And there is thinking out there that J.C. Latham is a better fit at right tackle long term. So interesting. It doesn't age super well that you've now used your last two first-round picks on a left guard and a right tackle.
Yeah.
When you have so many premium positions that are unsolved in this roster. But if it makes this team better moving forward, then so be it. And clearly that is where the Titans feel like they lived with that move yesterday. What was the thing that surprised you the most in the NFL yesterday around all the moves that were made?
It wasn't like a huge move, Will, but I think my tweet that I put out just explained exactly what I felt about the move. Was the Eagles trading Kenny Pickett to the Cleveland Browns for a 2025 fifth-round pick. And then they also got Dorian Thompson-Robinson. I just tweeted LOL. It's just for the fact that, look, I know it's not the most awful deal. And I know when you look at the Browns, you also say, well, what are they doing at quarterback? But, I mean, Kenny Pickett for a fifth-round pick, Kenny Pickett's been fine in moments where he's had to come in. But I still don't know what the Browns are doing in terms of a quarterback, because yesterday I was watching that ESPN special and Adam Schefter came on there and pretty much said he's now not as convinced that the Cleveland Browns are taking a quarterback. So then I see this move and I'm like, maybe that signifies that they're going to make Kenny Pickett their QB next year, which I just don't think is smart. So I kind of laughed at that. Also, giving up a fifth-round pick for a guy who's kind of been, I thought
the cost was high, but I think he's their backup.
Yeah.
I think they're going to sign somebody either today or tomorrow.
So you think a vet?
Well, they don't have Deshaun Watson. Like, they needed a backup quarterback.
Right.
I just think that's a little bit of a high price. It's a premium they're paying, but to me, I think they're still living in the cheaper veteran quarterback market. Whether that's bringing back Jameis, whether that's Kirk Cousins, if and when he becomes available, which I still think happens. To be quite honest with you, but we'll see. I mean, they could have something else up their sleeve, but yeah, I just think he's a backup quarterback.
Yeah, and that's weird because you don't know exactly, like I said, who the starter is. And even if they do bring in, if they do draft Shedeur Sanders, or let's say the Titans don't take Cam and they take Cam, he's like your backup, but then you're just relying on those two guys to be there from the start.
I also wonder if they're interested in Joe Milton.
Maybe.
Third-string quarterback now in New England.
You never know,
Josh
right?
Dobbs, again, Mike Vrabel keeping all his friends together. And our friend. We like Josh Dobbs, so I'm not even gonna talk negative about that one. But Josh Dobbs, the backup quarterback, and I don't know, as well as Joe Milton played in that last game. I mean, thank you, Joe. It's the reason why the number one pick is here in Tennessee this year. I don't know. I'm not advocating for Joe Milton to be a starting quarterback, but I wouldn't be surprised if he was moved somewhere for a pick swap by somebody that is quarterback needy.
I agree. I mean, people still are fascinated with, who he is in terms of a beast when he does show up. So I think people still look at that as, hey, I mean, why not have that on our team? He was able to step in at times, and be a backup and perform and do some things. So why not us?
615-737-1045. What is your take on what the Titans did yesterday in free agency? What do you like? What do you not like? We'll give you our reaction coming up next. Hey, it's Will Bowling. You've heard me talk about how Lead Company is all you need for your home, but hey, they're also all you need for your facility. That's right. They're expert technicians on the facilities team. They got you covered, not just for HVAC, but for plumbing and electrical as well. From healthcare facilities to industrial and everything in between, Lead Company is available 24/7, 365 to keep your building running efficiently. You got to call Lead Company today at 615-567-1000 or contact them online at leadcompany.com. They've got over 80 years of experience over at Lead Company, trusted since 1944. Open 24/7 with 14 community locations here in Tennessee and also in Kentucky and Alabama. They've got over 1,000 vehicles in their fleet, their vans and trucks, all of their vehicles that are ready to help you at a moment's notice when you give them a call at 615-567-1000. Contact them online at leecompany.com. That's Lee Company, all you need. RKW is brewed by Scooters Coffee on 104.5 The Zone with locations in White House, Mount Juliet, Rivergate, Smyrna, and Brentwood. Download the Scooters Coffee mobile app today to order ahead and save $2 off your first mobile order. Kayla Anderson and Will Boulding with you. We stream the show live on Facebook Live, YouTube, Twitter, or Twitch. We begin with Dan Moore, a 4-year deal, $82 million, $50 million guaranteed, and $30 million in 2025. The Titans intend to play him at left tackle and shift J.C. Latham to the right side, $20.5 million a year. Makes him the 8th highest paid left tackle in the NFL. Kayla, what was your initial reaction about this move, and what do you like about it?
Yeah, I think my initial reaction was, oh, I know that name, because Ramon Foster has brought that up for at least the past year and a half or so when it comes to possibly being a guy that the Titans could be interested in. I think last year we had the same discussion about him. They drafted, I believe, a left tackle.
Broderick Jones out of Georgia. Yep.
And I think the assumption was that he was going to probably start right away, but Dan Moore obviously won out that job. And I remember hearing that story from Ramon himself. So when I saw the name, I thought, okay, this is really interesting because it actually seems to be coming into fruition. I did not know, though, Will, myself, I was one of those who thought he was a little bit older of a tackle.
Oh, yeah.
And so then right when I started looking up, the age and everything and what exactly the story was for him to be a free agent, I felt a lot more comfortable with what was happening. Now, you look at the money right away and you say, oh my gosh, okay, is this really a deal that they should have done for a guy that maybe gave up on paper, 12 sacks last year?
According to Pro Football Focus, yep.
Right. And of course, Pro Football Focus, I like to reference them sometimes when I am trying to compare a player, but it isn't the end all be all. And I'm excited for Ramon to be able to break down some of the stuff that you can understand why maybe not all those sacks were on him when you look at the film. But I like the move. I really do. The more and more I started to do my research and look at some of the film that is online and available, I think it's going to be a good thing for them to have a younger guy, but also a veteran to help this line. Also, you have J.C. Latham that I think can excel at the right tackle spot. I think he could have been a good left tackle too. But now I feel like you put him over there, he kind of feels like he's back at home. And I don't really think he's going to have some sort of a sophomore slump just because they're moving him to the right side. I think the biggest question for me, Will, is how quickly can you see Peter Skoronski and Dan Moore kind of find what we saw JC and him building throughout the season?
New Titans tackle Dan Moore had a 92.5% pass block win rate with the Steelers last year, according to True Media. He did allow 13 sacks, according to their metrics. 76% run block win rate. That was ranked 23rd among tackles last year. Just a little bit better than J.C. Latham's. Ramon's take on Twitter, if you read it there, was this. Free market determined his pay. If a team can lowball a player, they will. That's the business. He's 26. He's missed one game in 4 years, and should still be ascending up with his technique, with his play and consistency, especially if you believe in Bill Callahan. Ramon also added, Dan will be fine. Russell Wilson laid down a lot of those sacks last year, and Kenny Pickett also rolled left towards defenders. I think the two pieces of added context that are important with Dan Moore is Russell Wilson takes a lot of sacks, and that honestly, they left him one-on-one against some of the best rushers in the NFL. Mm-hmm. So I'm not going to excuse 12 sacks given up, but I do think that there is context around how those sacks were allowed, who the quarterback was, and things that go beyond a box score that are significant here. You got a young tackle in a really bad tackle market. You overpaid him, but that's what you do in free agency. Everyone who was signed yesterday, the vast majority of them, overpaid, right? The NFL is taking a lot of our money from Peacock, is taking a lot of our money as Sunday Ticket. Prices increase, all of these things. The cap is going up significantly every year. I think it is smart of the Titans, and what I like about this move the most is that there's $50 million of cash in the first 2 years on this deal. It is very front-loaded from things that we know, which means two things. When you have a more expensive and competitive roster, when you potentially have either a competitive quarterback, when you want to add weapons, you are able to do that at the third and fourth years of Dan Moore's contract. Or if he just isn't good, you can get rid of him. The cash is up front. If you have him for 2 seasons and he's given up 12 sacks again, but not to AFC North pass rushers, but to bad pass rushers, you can get out of it, go get another left tackle, and here we go. But ultimately, the Titans had to find some starters through free agency because they don't have a third-round pick. And unless you're trading back, they don't have the draft capital to address all of their needs only in the NFL draft.
And I think this kind of opens the blinds a little too into what they realistically think is going to happen in the draft as well, because it's not going to say everything, but I do think that things are starting to be put in place to where I feel more convinced than I ever have that the Titans are probably just going to stick and pick Cam Ward at number 1, because I do feel like not having a third-round pick then limits them to a lot of the other things they could have done, like simply going and getting maybe that right tackle in the second round. And again, nothing is guaranteed. It looks like they kind of had a plan to maybe move J.C. Latham before we even really thought that that was going to be something. But now it's like, okay, that gives you a little more wiggle room to possibly then go get your edge in that second round, because we've even heard Mike Borgonzi say that's a really deep position in the draft. And you know that the Titans need to shore up that edge spot, and with more than one, in my opinion. It gives you a little bit more wiggle room because that third round pick, they're just not sure that they're going to get that in some sort of a trade.
Maybe. I mean, it's only Tuesday. There is still a lot that is going to happen today. The Aaron Rodgers domino has not yet fallen. At this point, it does feel like Mac Jones is probably going to be the quarterback fit, if I had to guess. But again, we made guesses yesterday. Some of them were right. Some of them were way off on things that would happen around the league. So I still feel like it's really early to determine what they're going to do at quarterback and what that means moving forward. Dan Moore, we mentioned, did allow 12 sacks last year, according to PFF. 5 of those were against Cleveland and Cincinnati. Ramon's other take that he kind of passed along that he'll get more into tomorrow when he's back with us is that Myles Garrett kind of had his way with him last year. But that was actually not the case until last year. A guy that really managed Garrett pretty well the first couple of years that he was starting a tackle for the Steelers. There is certainly a benefit, if you're Dan Moore, to no longer having to play Myles Garrett, Trey Hendrickson, and the Ravens for a third of your games this upcoming season. Yes, there are good pass rushers in the AFC South. There is no one to that level of Hendrickson or Garrett unless Hendrickson gets, picked up by an AFC South team.
Right. And look, that doesn't necessarily make me feel better when it comes to the future in the end goal, because the end goal is, this team wants to get back to the playoffs and win a Super Bowl. But just to get to the playoffs, then you are going to eventually face the top talent and the best pass rushers in the league. And so I know that they might not face that in the division right now currently, but maybe then, this year gives him an opportunity to learn under Bill Callahan even more and kind of shore up some of those things that allowed him to get, pushed around when it came to those certain elite pass rushers, in particular from Cincinnati and the Ravens. But we'll deal with that when they make, the playoffs eventually sometime in the future. But I do think he has room to grow. And that's one thing I do want to ask Ramon is I'll sit here and agree with a lot of the things that, we're hearing about Dan Moore, the positives, but I do want to know, what can Dan Moore do better? And do you think Bill Callahan can help shore up some of those things that he might still lack at the age of 26?
It's an overpay, but welcome to day one of free agency. It's how this goes.
They had to we discussed this. They had to overpay on one of these positions that they were in dire need of.
All of them. I mean, it's NFL free agency.
And
what
the
do you guys
tackle,
expect?
I'm not that's the thing. I'm not mad about it. They had to do something at either the right tackle or like they're doing, getting creative and doing a little flip-flop. The other position where I think that they need to get one of these better safeties in terms of really on also the linebacker move they just made, they need to go and spend a little money on one of these premier safeties. We didn't see a lot of them moving yesterday.
Yeah. Coming on YouTube asks, y'all might mention this later, but since the starting quarterbacks are off the market, who do y'all like as a potential bridge/spot starter? At this point, it's probably going to be Mac Jones. That has been the guy that Buck Rising reported yesterday was the name he was hearing. Paul Kaharski's written that as well. But that's another person that he thought could be in the mix for the Titans, that type of quarterback. To me, I think it's probably him. And again, I think the Titans are looking for their Sam Darnold. I really do. I think even if they draft Cam Ward, I think they would love for someone to take the reins for this upcoming season and allow whoever else young behind them to sit and learn and watch and grow.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure on the bridge yet because there's so many dominoes that have to fall here still. And it starts next, I think, with Aaron Rodgers. And then, you see what happens with Russell Wilson. And I know that there was a report out there that Paul Kaharski refuted in terms of Russell Wilson having interest here or the Titans having interest in him. We've kind of heard a lot of weird things. Zach Wilson didn't end up coming here. He's going to the Miami Dolphins. So there's some reports out there that I don't know exactly who to believe at this point. It's a lot of he said, she said stuff. But I do believe they are going to go get Cam Ward with the number 1 overall pick. But I do believe that the most likely quarterback at this point is probably Mac Jones because he's not being tied to any other team like Russell Wilson is, like Aaron Rodgers is. And I do think he's still somewhat moldable, which probably intrigues Brian Callahan.
And I really don't hate Cam Ward as much as I think our audience thinks I do. I just don't think he's going to be wildly successful here because I think he would get ruined here considering his weaknesses and this team's weaknesses. So anyway, anytime we mention quarterbacks, I think there's this idea in our F&M Bank chat on YouTube that I just want bad quarterback play and I just want the Titans to be bad. No, I just want patience.
And I want to have it no matter what.
I want patience to find the right quarterback, and I do not think Cam Ward is the right quarterback for the Tennessee Titans. That's all I'll say. Cody Barton, linebacker. 3-year, $21 million deal. Good run defender. Not a great coverage defender, according to a lot of the analytics. A 1-year, $2.5 million prove-it deal with the Broncos last spring. And he went on to start 14 games last season. 106 sacks, ranked him second on the team. 1.5 sacks. Interesting, Kayla, the fit here, because Kenneth Murray is a good run defender. Mm-hmm. Cody Barton is a pretty good run defender. Mm-hmm. It feels like there is a third linebacker that is either going to be brought in or who is already on this roster who's going to step into a larger role because they need a coverage linebacker still. I thought this was a bit of a surprising fit to play next to Kenneth Murray.
That's the thing. He's not bad at his job, and he's not a bad linebacker in terms of, like you just mentioned, the run. And when you look, though, at the coverage part, that's what the Titans are missing. And, they no longer, they had the moves in terms of shipping, I'm forgetting his name, up to Seattle. They just re-signed him. Ernest Jones, thank you. And then all of that just didn't work after that. And you're right. If they're going to stick with Kenneth Murray, which they're going to do, it looks like, you can't just have two guys that are both good at the same thing. We saw how that affected them last year, especially down the stretch. A lot of people also comparing Cody Barton to Jack Gibbons in a way too, and I think
that Zach Lyons tweet that.
Yeah, I think that comes too from just maybe the lack of athleticism compared to some other linebackers. But this guy, I mean, he's good and he's super smart, like a Jack Gibbons. I get that part too. But you're right. Where is the coverage part coming from? Where that has got to be solved. I don't know if there's anyone on the team, Will, that I can think of off the top of my head who's ready to step into that role this year.
James Williams.
And James Williams, if they've seen enough growth in him, that's a big jump, though. He was a 7th-round pick, a converted safety, by the way. I can't even believe he played safety. If you look at this guy, he's huge. But if they feel like he's taken enough growth in terms of last year and that he could do that coming into this year, then I'm fine with that. But I do feel like you need another guy in there just to even have the depth part of it as well. And then again, I think you need to go get a safety that you're going to be able to see that athleticism out of.
Very early as they piece all of this together. So if Cody Barton is the only thing they do at inside linebacker to put next to Kenneth Murray, I don't love it, but it's day one of free agency.
Yeah.
This is morning number 2. They will likely make more moves by the time, this show is over today. Originally entered the league as a third-round pick out of Utah, originally with Seattle in 2019. Cody Barton spent the first 3 years of his career playing primarily on special teams before emerging as an 11-game starter in 2022. A little bit of an older guy, but I think someone who hasn't played as much volume, as many snaps, and someone that is, again, earlier in their career, even if they are older. And just in terms of being a full-time starter. Interesting fit. Tyrell Dotson's still out there, the local product who is more of a coverage linebacker. I could certainly see a scenario where they bring in a 1 or 2 year guy worth, $6 to $8 million a year to be a coverage third down specialist.
Sure.
Similarly to the way Titans had Jayon Brown when he was first brought in here. And again, that is, a role you can find if you really want to. Later in the draft as well, and find more of a coverage specialist linebacker on day 2 or 3 who can step in right away. But for now, Cody Barton next to Kenneth Murray. Going to be interesting to see how that works.
Yeah, I'm excited for some of these new guys and how they fit, because this is the thing. This is a brand new, upper management for the most part. I know Chad Brinker's still here, but Mike Borgonzi has a lot to say in some of these moves, and you can already start to tell, Will, that kind of stamp he's putting on early on. Sure. It is kind of the play out a little bit in slower motion than just get it all in one swoop.
There was some reporting you mentioned yesterday about Russell Wilson. Connor Hughes of SNY put it out there that the Titans were among the teams targeting Russell Wilson, adding Aaron Rodgers as the quarterback the Giants want. They're waiting to find out if he wants them. Most league sources I touch base with believe Rodgers is headed to the Steelers, which could lead the Giants to Russell Wilson. The problem, the Titans and others are interested in Wilson too. I would not trust Jets writers primarily on who the Titans want or don't want, when very clearly Russell Wilson's camp wants to start a bidding war for Russell Wilson services. You can see right through that, guys. With respect to Connor Hughes, who's just doing his job, I would believe the local people that are reporting on this, and maybe not the ones that are in New Jersey, from a totally different perspective, being told things from agents versus people inside a building. Now,
now that, Aaron Rodgers looks to be going to the Steelers, and that nothing's set in stone, I just believe that ball is starting to roll even more at this point. I don't love the fact that there's not much more available after, Aaron Rodgers goes, and it looks like Russell Wilson could then go to the Giants, which is funny to me because the Giants just seem like they're picking up all the scraps at this point. It's like all of their first number one, choices, they're now going other places. I'd love to have, at this point now, Russell Wilson as a one-year bridge, even though, again, I don't love Russell Wilson as the guy. But I don't think he's coming here.
I wouldn't mind it, but, man, he takes a lot of sacks. He really, really does not have very good pocket presence at this point of his career. He is not the mobile athlete that he was earlier in his career. But if you wanted to be as good as you possibly could this year, he is your best option now to do that, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. Totally. 615-737-1045, a pair of unheralded defensive players back on the Tennessee Titans. We'll give you more updates on what the Titans did yesterday coming up next. RKW brewed by Scooters Coffee. Wrap it up hour one on your Tuesday morning. 615-737-1045. I'd love to hear your take on Titans free agency day one and what you want them to do today. Stream it live at 1045 The Zone TV, Facebook Live, YouTube, Twitter, or Twitch. We are starting to get contract info on a number of these guys. We'll talk about the quarterback dominoes coming up to begin hour two here in about 15 minutes. But Kayla, two defensive players were brought back yesterday, and we have been talking for weeks about why the Titans needed to re-sign defensive tackle Sebastian Joseph Day. They do that with a one-year deal and a max value of $7.5 million yesterday, according to Ian Rappaport.
I was so excited about this guy coming back. And I know that a lot of people want to see Nick Whisper-Kakine back, and we'll see what the market is for him. Because I know the joke is that New England and Mike Vrabel could reset the wide receiver market with NWI. I don't think that happens, but I do think they could possibly get in there for a high offer in terms of what they could give him, and that might be out of the range of what the Titans can do. So I'm still holding out hope that can happen. But this was the other guy, Will, that I just felt like not a lot of people recognized what he was able to do last year when his name was called for the Titans. But he did a lot. I know I had gone over his PFF grades at some point over the last 2 weeks, but extremely high, really well respected in that room because he is more of a veteran. And I know the defensive line group is super tight. I know that for a fact. And so getting this piece back too, I think is just good just to have that on the interior. You have depth a little bit more so starting to build. You're going to need that no matter what on both sides of the line or both parts of sides of the ball when it comes to the line. But I just think he's a good fit. He really liked it here, and I know he really wanted to come back. So I'm just glad we were able to get him and not have to spend like an arm and a leg. Yeah, leadership, culture, all those things. You'll hear about Sebastian Joseph Day, who last season started 12 games and played in all 17 games, 44 tackles, 2.5 sacks, 6 quarterback hits, glue guy. On the defensive line. I would like to see them still add another pass rusher to the interior of the line, not just the edge positions. Sebastian Joseph Day, not as much of a pass rush specialist as maybe you could still find out there as well. Those aren't cheap, but certainly a member of that defensive line that is valuable not only on the field but off it. I'm very glad the Titans brought back Daryl Baker as well. Played in all 17 games last year, made 9 starts, was claimed last August after spending time with the Indianapolis Colts. 36 tackles, 5 passes defended, 1 TFL, had 4 special teams tackles. At the very least, Daryl Baker is a special teams defender. At most, he is a very serviceable backup corner. And it feels like this team has been really bad with backup corners between some of Trey Avery's concerns, between the old Jonathan Joseph experience back in 2020 and COVID under Mike Vrabel. Daryl Baker is serviceable if you need him in a pinch. I thought he was excellent last year for what it's worth. And you're talking about in a pinch. That's what they were in last year. I mean, you had Chidobe Awuzie and L'Jarius Sneed that just weren't available, which is wild. And I know Chidobe Awuzie came back towards the end of the year, but I think people expected a lot more out of that free agent signing. And then the Sneed thing is what it is with the weird injury that came more than what we thought it was. Daryl Baker stepped right in after spending 2 years in Indianapolis, only starting in 3 games that first year. And you saw some more growth in him that second year, why he even got interest, played in all 17 games. He started in 9 this year for the Titans. And I know this isn't a guy that was like, getting interceptions or making the big time plays, but I think he was doing enough to make you feel comfortable when he had to come in and, take over in that role. One thing I thought was interesting yesterday, and it took us some time to see it because Twitter was not up. Adam Schefter's wording of the tweet about Dan Moore. Did you notice this? I have not looked at this. So he says, this was a big story yesterday.
Obviously, 4-year, $82 million deal that includes $50 million guaranteed. Schefter adds the deal includes $30 million in year one, $50 million in the first 2 years. Jeff Nally and Graylin Crane of CAA negotiated the contract with Titans president of football operations, Chad Brinker. The Titans now have a left tackle to protect the blind side of whoever plays quarterback. Why is it necessary why is it necessary to say that Chad Brinker did this deal? To me, it's just so unnecessary. It's so I'm not up in arms about it. Yeah. I'm not sharpening my pitchforks. But the first deal of free agency, to me, this kind of undermines the authority of your general manager, who we were told was going to put the roster together. He didn't have final say, but Chad was going to do all the other stuff and the film and the sports science and bring it all together. And it just feels unnecessary. Putting this out there, making sure that Chad Brinker is the one that gets the credit. I'm
a little curious I've not seen a lot of that ever in terms of when you put the reporting out there and then you bring in the name of any front office person.
Schefter does it a good bit. Yeah.
I guess I've never seen that as much because he doesn't cover the Titans that much. There's not as many things that go on here that requires him to say that. But that is a little interesting, I think, because you're putting the parts together for the first time. You're trying to build something here and push the reset button, which we've heard many times before. To put a name out there, I could see if you put both names. Hey, Borgonzi and Brinker work together but It is a little bit strange. But wouldn't you think that got the okay if they're putting that out, which they haven't put out a lot? Well, this has been a really quiet camp over here.
Well, I think the agency put it out because these national reporters live in the pockets of agents. I mean, they do. So I don't think this was the Titans wanting to say maybe Chad Brinker, but it does. It just has a little bit of a sour taste to me of really.
Do you think this is
Brinker
how we're going to begin? Mad?
I don't think they were probably mad about it. I mean, I don't. I just think it's so unnecessary from all parties. I don't get it.
I think Schefter kind of reporting though, like you said, he does these kind of things sometimes.
It's why I can't get totally up in arms about it. Is because I don't know where this came from. I can't tell you without a shadow of a doubt an agent put this out there versus the team put it out there. Because maybe the team didn't want it out there of undermining Borgonzi's ability. So I get it. But I don't love the optics of the first big thing you do under the Mike Borgonzi general manager era is credited to Chad Brinker.
Yeah, that definitely is weird. I will say that. And I won't put it all on the team. I do think Adam Schefter does these stupid things sometimes.
Well, I don't know if it's stupid. But it's he's just an agency guy.
It just looks bad.
It is who he is. I don't know. So anyway, let the games begin is this a Brinker player or a Borgonzi player?
There we go.
And then when Brinker's on the hot seat this offseason, next year it'll be Borgonzi and whoever else. 615-737-1045 as we begin hour two. Quarterback dominoes are falling. And Adam Schefter dropped a very interesting nugget. You'll hear from him about the Cleveland Browns and how it affects the Titans coming up next.
Did you know you're overpaying for your health and wellness products?
With over 20 company-owned brands offering its members vitamins, supplements, wellness, and skincare products, you're able to save up to 70% off retail.
Members Nutrition can't change your life, but we can change the way you live.
7 a.m. from the 104.5 The Zone studios. Good morning. I'm Will Bowling. The Tennessee Titans have their left tackle as former Steeler Dan Moore gets a reported 4-year deal worth $82 million and $50 million guaranteed, with $30 million in 2025 from the team. Moore's new average annual value of $20.5 million per year ties him as the 8th highest paid left tackle in the NFL, according to Over the Cap. The Titans are also adding some linebacker help, signing Broncos linebacker Cody Barton to a 3-year, $21 million deal. Barton was Denver's second leading tackler with 106 stops last season. Quarterback dominoes began to fall yesterday. The Seattle Seahawks found their replacement for Geno Smith in Sam Darnold, who agrees to a 3-year, $100.5 million deal. And Justin Fields will sign a 2-year, $40 million contract that includes $30 million in guarantees with the New York Jets. That means former Jets quarterback Zach Wilson, he has a new home as well, reaching an agreement on a 1-year, $6 million fully guaranteed deal that could grow to $10 million with the Miami Dolphins. For all your foundation repair and your waterproofing needs, you need to visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone. Brewed up a fresh hour, 7 a.m. in Nashville on RKW. Scooter's Coffee makes us go, with locations in White House, Mount Juliet, Rivergate, Smyrna, and Brentwood that you need to go to. Download the Scooter's Coffee mobile app today to order ahead and save $2 on your first mobile order. I've got the Scooter Doodle coffee going today, Kayla. It is a cinnamon, like snickerdoodle kind of coffee. 10 out of 10.
Okay, so I'm going to have to go
terrific.
Take a pod next break and go down there and make one in the Keurig. Scooter Doodle?
Scooter Doodle.
That's a great name.
Say that 5 times fast.
Scooter Doodle.
That also sounds like one of the Bonnaroo band names. That
Exactly.
We could have
And we're not talking about a hybrid
Bonnaroo band.
dog either. You know all those doodles. They're like mixed with things.
That's correct. That is correct. Quarterback dominoes beginning to fall. We'll get to that in just a moment. But two breaking news contracts to tell you about in the NFL, including one guy who has been tied to the Titans at the safety position. Former Dolphins safety Javon Holland is headed to the New York Giants. So there is the top free agent safety on the market, linked to the Titans by many, will not be a Titan. He will be a New York Giant. And then you have defensive lineman Jonathan Allen, who is going to sign with the Minnesota Vikings for a 3-year, $60 million contract. The former Commanders Pro Bowl tackle finds a new home in the NFC North.
All right. Well, first of all, I'm sorry, Titans fans. I know Javon Holland was a favorite amongst a lot of fans to come here. And honestly, he was one of the better safeties, hands down, on the market. I'm kind of bummed, too, but my guy is over there in Las Vegas. Merrick. That's the guy I want, but who knows if they would, again, pay
He signed
money
yesterday, too.
Oh, did he? I didn't even see that. Where'd he go?
He is a Carolina Panther, 3 years, $51 million.
I didn't even see that.
Trayvon
So
Merrick.
two of the favorites off the board when it comes to the safety market.
Bring me Justin Reed.
Yeah, he's
Let's
still
see.
there.
Former chief.
And
Potentially former chief.
Again, we don't know how much they're looking to pay the safeties, and these are the best guys there. So maybe they wait another cycle to go get their guy. But
Potentially.
one thing's for sure, Will, they've got to get, I believe, a safety in this free agency, part of things. And then in terms of, was it Jonathan Allen?
Yep. 3 years, $60 million to Minnesota.
Yeah, look at their defense is already good. That's a big part of why they had success last year too. So adding another key guy to that. So Vikings, we'll see what they do in terms of having their quarterback succeed if their rookie actually does what he's supposed to do. But the defense is going to be good again.
According to Over the Cap, Justin Fields to the New York Jets, we have the breakdown of the money in a 2-year, $40 million contract. Void years 2028 through 2030, which means the signing bonus can be spread out over 5 seasons, according to the collective bargaining agreement, lowering the cap charge for the New York Jets, who will pay Justin Fields $8 million against the cap in 2025. That's just a $5 million guaranteed salary. $10 million of that becomes guaranteed in 2026. So a $23 million cap hit for Justin Fields in 26, a void year in 27 with a $9 million cap hit there as well. 2 years for 40, $8 million against the cap for 2025, 23 for 2026. Would you have done that deal if you were the Tennessee Titans for Justin Fields?
I probably would have. Yeah, because you look at that first year, Will, and that's the biggest thing. They're not taking a huge hit this year. And I think you mentioned if the $5 million was guaranteed in 2025, it's an $8 million cap hit. So, and then their void year is in 2027. I don't think that's that big of a deal. I know people were up in arms. Some people in terms of what New York did with this, but what exactly were they supposed to do? I still feel like he's one of the quarterbacks on the market that has, years left in him who can still probably find some success somewhere with talent. The Jets have some good parts on defense. Fields played with Garrett Wilson, like I mentioned yesterday. This was my guess that he was going to the New York Jets.
Sure was.
And I'm not mad about it, Will. And I actually would have done the deal if I was the Titans.
Yeah, I think it would have made sense. I think you've got to be really confident that Justin Fields for $23 million against the cap in 2026
and that's the biggie.
Is your quarterback in 2026. And clearly the Titans are unwilling to do that level of commitment.
Yeah.
I mean, heck, I would have done the Sam Darnold deal for what he got for 3 years, $100.5 million. I think would have made a lot of sense here. But clearly, I think they have got the plan of having another opening in 26, 27, 28, and give a guy void years for 2028 to 2030. I know $9 million isn't much, but you are hopeful that Justin Fields can stick around at that point if you're the Jets. $23 million next year is a big commitment, and that's something that they would restructure and could redo if he does end up being good for them in 2025. Let's go to the phone, 615-737-1045. Daryl, first up of the phones this morning. What's up, Daryl?
God damn it. Fucking Daryl.
And you lost your chance.
Oh, boy.
So,
okay.
Daryl, with 2 words, 2 magic words that you can't say.
I'm not understanding if Daryl was saying that to himself.
I think his name wasn't Daryl, was maybe part of it.
Okay.
I don't know.
I've been having issues with the phones lately where it's too loud.
Okay.
So when they tell me their name, I have to ask them several times.
Oh.
Okay.
So I have to ask them to spell it. I have to ask them to say it clearly or lower.
But it's nothing to get that mad at, Daryl. I mean, just say your name and say it's actually not Daryl, it's so-and-so instead of, ruining your chance to.
I mean, I even on the phone, I asked him, I said, hey, Daryl, how's it going? Like, what you got for me today?
Yeah.
And he never corrected me.
Yeah, somebody
so
eating his
confused
Cheerios.
on what happened. That was wild. Okay, that woke me up this
Caller
morning.
approval rating drops to start the day. Somebody call in and redeem the callers. 615-737-1045 to talk about the Titans this morning. Let's hear from Adam Schefter. He didn't say any bad words yesterday on SportsCenter talking about the Cleveland Browns. Schefter has mentioned before he was confident the Browns would draft a quarterback. He says now he's not really anymore.
Newsbreaker here, maybe like
Well, okay.
Shetty,
yeah.
if you can look it up here.
Yep.
Does this look good to you, Adam?
Is this something? Do you think they're
Based on
taking
what
a
you're
quarterback?
hearing?
Because you said this. You said Cleveland's not up here, but you said Cleveland's taking a quarterback.
I said I was confident then.
Okay.
It was early in the process.
Okay.
I'm not as confident now.
Okay, how about here?
Interesting.
I'm not as confident now. The Giants, I think, will be potentially in the quarterback market, but I'm not convinced. I think that could go either way. I think Cleveland and the Giants could go either way. Again, the intel, like we know how this works.
Yeah,
right?
of course.
Early on in the process, I was pretty confident that Cleveland was taking a quarterback. I am not that confident anymore.
Wait,
it could
so
happen.
does that mean really fast?
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yesterday from Adam Schefter, the season of lies continues. What do you make of him saying that Cleveland might not be drafting a quarterback anymore?
So I was watching that live when that all went down. And of course, Adam Schefter is like multitasking because as he's on this ESPN free agency special, he's on his phone literally tweeting out things as he's getting things in real time. And when he said that, I was like, wait a second, maybe he made a mistake. Maybe he's not meaning to say this. But no, he clearly said that he's not as convinced, first of all, that the Cleveland Browns are interested. And by all accounts, we have been on the record on here saying we've been convinced that Cleveland is probably going to take a quarterback. They have a lot of interest in Cam Ward, so it seems, because we had talked about if, indeed the Titans did something possibly even with them to trade up because they want to get their quarterback no matter what. I don't know. It almost makes me feel like now things are just being said to
always
mess with what's going on between the Titans and Giants, because that's where I feel like everything is evolving from when it comes to the quarterback conversation in this draft is the Titans and the Giants. And it's almost like the Giants don't want to give up a handful of things, so they want to try to convince the Titans that they're not going for a quarterback now, right. And then vice versa, the Titans, they still want to convince everybody they're taking a quarterback, which they might. It's a very weird game.
To me, it screams, hey, New York, you don't need to move up to 1 to get a quarterback. You can just get 1 at 3. Exactly. You'll be all right. It'll work out. Hey, just because we signed Myles Garrett doesn't mean we don't love Abdul Carter. Mm-hmm. He's a great prospect. I mean, that's all this means to me, honestly. I still think they're taking a quarterback. I still think it would be Shedeur Sanders if it's not Cam Ward based on what we know today.
Yeah.
I do not believe in the Shedeur Sanders fall as much as many others do. I still think that if he is there at 2, the Browns are a quarterback desperate organization and team that they would take him. We'll see. We'll see who else they sign. We'll see what else they do. They have Kenny Pickett. They give up a 5th-round pick and Dorian Thompson-Robinson to make that happen. So Kenny Pickett is in their quarterback room. Deshaun Watson is in their training room. And at this point, is Kenny Pickett QB2? Is he a bridge for Shedeur Sanders? Mm-hmm. A lot of questions. I still think they could go sign someone else in that mid-tier of the Mac Jones tier and the Kirk Cousins tier if he becomes available. But it does feel like the Browns are just giving themselves options now that the Myles Garrett domino has fallen. And things feel so obvious for them. This is not a draft where you can afford to be that obvious and telegraph it because there aren't 2 elite quarterbacks. There's one that a lot of people think is very good in Cam Ward, but clearly there's a pretty big departure now between him and Shedeur Sanders. Browns are keeping their options open.
Yeah, and they need to. They need to. I mean, look, the Browns, they by no means, I know the Titans are in a situation when it comes to quarterback, but the Browns, let's remember, too, they're also paying the guy that they came here to be a game changer, to be a guy that was going to get them to the next level in Deshaun Watson. And you made the joke, and it's very true. He's just going to be sitting in the training room. Kenny Pickett, to me, is not the answer. Even if, they do draft Shedeur Sanders, let's say, if that's what they go with, because that's who's available. I just feel like Shedeur is still going to have a little bit of time to learn. And I just don't know if Kenny Pickett is the veteran you want being the guy that's teaching him anything.
Comment on YouTube says, I don't think Will clicked on Daryl. I think it was a different caller who was mad Daryl was picked before him. Daryl was the only one on the line.
So it's okay. Can I get this clear? His name was not Daryl.
I have no idea. You'd have to ask Daryl.
Yeah, I'm still confused.
No, he actually called back. And he wanted to apologize. I think somebody in the chat said, this is Daryl, but their name was Barron.
I
don't know. It's the phones are very muffled sometimes. So it's just you got to say it clear and you got to spell it.
And I could see where Barron and Darren, Daryl, I see that. So we're sorry, Daryl.
Dang it, Daryl.
Your name right.
He wanted to talk about Chad Brinker, and I said, well, I can't get you back on at this time. I'm sorry. you kind of lost your opportunity.
Yeah,
there.
Absolutely. Maybe tomorrow.
Yeah.
1 day suspension. That's okay.
It happens sometimes.
Sometimes we all get suspended in life.
I got my mouth washed out with soap when I was a youngin' a lot of times.
Okay.
A lot of times with that orange dial soap at that. So I understand you, Daryl. You just can't do it on radio.
Sounds like PTSD.
Yeah, it is, but I still swear, so just not on local radio.
There you go. 615-737-1045. Best and worst moves around the NFL. I'll recap it for you coming up next.
When couples walk into Genesis Diamonds, their eyes get so big. It's a mind-blowing display of sparkling jewelry with literally thousands of choices when it comes to engagement rings. All styles she's seen online are right there, though. But the experts at Genesis make them feel totally at ease. They're offered a beverage. They're asked a lot of questions about their taste and style. They are given a no-holds-barred education. They are even told the secrets of the jewelry business, too. The consultants at Genesis are not on commission. They are not retail clerks, and they are not transaction focused. They can spend 30 minutes with you or 3 hours with you. It doesn't matter. You can see dozens and dozens of diamonds in an array of sizes and shapes and color grades. You can see handcrafted rings from all the top designers that other jewelry stores can't even carry. You can see the difference between a diamond that is properly cut and one you might see at one of those online places. The difference will blow you away. Bottom line, Genesis will take away all the risk, all the mystery, all the confusion, and help you make a decision that you will be confident in for years to come. Genesis Diamonds, a true direct importer with rock bottom prices and a luxury experience and no compromises either. They're located in Green Hills and Cool Springs.
RKW is brewed by Scooters Coffee on 104.5 The Zone as we continue in hour 2. 615-737-1045. Kayla, the Scooter Doodle Coffee is getting a second mention this morning because this stuff is absolutely terrific.
I love it that we're trying something new. We've had the one that we always love, and then there was the regular one that we got a bag of.
Yep.
Now we've got the Keurig cups of the Scooter Doodle.
It is so good. Download the Scooters Coffee mobile app today to order ahead. Save $2 on your first mobile order. Makes it easy. Efficient. You'll be in, you'll be out. You will have some terrific coffee to start your morning. Whether you are in White House, Mount Juliet, Rivergate, Smyrna, and Brentwood, you have got a Scooters near you. Streaming live at 104.5 The Zone TV, F&M Bank Chat open. Facebook Live, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. Ramon will be back with us tomorrow to give his thoughts on the Dan Moore signing and spend the morning with us once again as well. But I thought there were enough moves yesterday where certainly you had options in terms of the worst and best decisions made around the NFL. It does feel like nationally, the Dan Moore move by the Titans is one that is gaining a lot of negative attention.
It is.
I saw Trevor Sikkema, I believe. No, it was one of the other guys who's on Buck's show commonly. I'll go figure out who it was. But there was a lot of negativity towards the Titans. However, I still think, Kayla, there were worse moves made by other teams. So I don't even really think the Dan Moore move was all that bad of one by the Titans yesterday.
Yeah, I don't. When you really start to look at it and do your research on it, and maybe when Ramon Foster rejoins us tomorrow, he will be able to give his side from an actual offensive lineman perspective, because he's been talking about Dan Moore for over a year and a half in terms of him possibly coming here. I just think it's like when you see the number in terms of Dan Moore and you see maybe 13 sacks.
It's a lot of money.
Yeah, that's where you are like, what am I missing here?
It's crazy money, but again, welcome to day one of NFL free agency.
Exactly. And this is what you get in the first swoop of things, especially when it comes to left tackles. They're probably going to get paid a little bit more than people would like. Fans would like, whatever, because they are more of a premium. I mean, there's not a lot of them out there, and you got to kind of get yours before they're gone type of thing, because we know what the Titans position-wise are in when it comes to that line. And it shored up what we think is 2 spots now in terms of the left tackle and the right tackle spots.
Totally.
So I'm actually more okay with it than I initially was when I saw the numbers.
And it was John Ledyard was the one who said Titans never learn when this move was made.
I don't know about that, John.
John Ledyard, PFF analytics focused guy. I mean, look, this is the new Titans as well. I mean, I'm sorry, but Mike Borgonzi is not at fault for the Titans giving L'Jarius Sneed all the money they did last year, or giving Calvin Ridley all the money they did. Like it. This is a new general manager, guys.
Yeah, and guess what? He's got to spend some money, bro.
Yeah, right.
And the position that the Titans offensive line has been in, it's also not his problem that the offensive line was what it was when he arrived here. I mean, he has to find ways to fix things. Oh, yeah, and also then fill a bunch of other holes on this roster. So, and that includes being smart in the draft and how you're doing it.
Totally. So who made the worst move on day one of NFL free agency yesterday?
Y'all might be like completely shocked with what I'm going to say. I know Will is going to be completely shocked with my take on this, but I'm always willing to just, spice things up on this show.
Okay.
So I know it had to be done because there wasn't really an other option, and it was the best option that was out there right now, but I'm not happy with the Seattle Seahawks.
Here we go.
I still am confused on what the hell their plan was from the get-go in terms of what they were doing in Seattle with Geno Smith, and for their old coach Pete Carroll to sneak behind their backs and find a way to get Geno Smith down there. And then I feel like they had to do something. They were pretty much put in this position where, okay, now we just don't have a quarterback. And so for us, we don't want to give away that much to go draft one of the guys this year, because we're back at like 19 in terms of picking.
Yep.
So I feel like they had to do what was best on the free agency market, which by all accounts, is Sam Darnold. And that is where the domino started yesterday. Look, he agreed to a 3-year deal. Look, I'm looking at the numbers here. Darnold's deal worth $100 million, nearly around that. I think it started at first at like 101 or something.
100 and a half. Yeah, was the number that was reported.
Exactly. So now it's about 100. He'll earn $110 million with 55 guaranteed. I just don't know, Will, if I feel comfortable in what Seattle has right now to be like, this is your guy moving forward. He's going to be exactly what he was when he was in Minnesota, and he had really elite wide receivers to throw to. They don't have that right now in Seattle.
Correct.
And they could go get guys in the draft, but again, that's also rolling the dice on who these guys could be from the jump. Remember, they traded away one of their best wide receivers in DK Metcalf. Mm-hmm. I just feel like, yeah, you went and got the best guy, but can he succeed in your system right now?
It is going to be interesting. I do think the sticker shock is not as bad as maybe it looks on paper when you consider some of the other quarterback contracts in the league. Right, Dak Prescott's cap hit this upcoming season is $52.9 million. Jordan Love's cap hit, we're talking close to $50 million. Or $55 a year for Jordan Love, $53 a year for Tua Tagovailoa. Sam Darnold for $33, you're probably talking about a cap hit that's in the 20s. Like, you still have flexibility to build a team. You have the ability with Sam Darnold now to, with an extra second-round pick by trading DK Metcalf, I would expect the Seahawks to draft a wide receiver with one of their first 3 picks, like with your 2s or with your 1. I mean, Ted McMillan could still be there. Luther Burden is kind of dropping. He's someone, if you believe in him, you could still go after him. Your wide receivers at this point, it is fair. Cody White, Jackson Smith and Jigba.
Love him.
Jake Bobo.
No. Noah
Fant, the tight end.
He's not done much.
Kenneth Walker III, a terrific young running back.
Sure.
But it is fair to say this early, like, who the heck is he going to throw to?
Yeah.
Totally get it. You got Charles Cross. You have a left tackle at least. But some questions on the offensive line. Jackson Smith and Jigba has just got to stay healthy because his soft tissue injuries have been well documented over the course of his career. So I would have done that deal. I 3 years, $100.5 million, I don't think is that crazy. I think you can get out of it. He can still hit free agency in his 20s. Mm-hmm. I think the challenge for Seattle is, like, if you wanted a mid-tier quarterback, you already had one. But again, 7 years younger.
Yeah.
Familiarity with the offensive coaching staff and someone who obviously his stock has never been higher. To me, you essentially got the Baker Mayfield deal just redone. It's the same percentage of the cap that Baker Mayfield got in Tampa. That one worked out pretty well. So it's going to be a fascinating case study, though, because I do think it will set the precedent of how much teams pay for reclamation projects at quarterback. Like, what happens with Sam Darnold is either going to influence a lot of other teams to pay a lot of other one-hit wonders, quote-unquote, in their minds, or totally stay away if he doesn't work out.
Yeah, and it is a roll of the dice in a little bit of a way because, again, I understand what Sam Darnold was able to do in his career last year. I'm not taking anything away from that. It's just always worrisome is, like, when you go to a different team, like, and now you're getting a different type of chance with more money. Can you do that again? Because he needs to be the quarterback he was for most of the season for the Vikings if he's going to have success in Seattle.
Totally. Yeah, totally. I'm not surprised, by the way. I figured that's the direction you would go. So.
Yeah, I'm okay. I didn't know, Will. I was like, I just hit a little close to home yesterday.
Fair enough. What are the Houston Texans doing? I thought this was easy. I thought this was an easy choice for the worst move yesterday. Laramie Tunsil traded by the Texans to the Washington Commanders. The Commanders, I think, make a great move with this because they have a 5-time Pro Bowl left tackle who's far from perfect. Laramie Tunsil is a walking penalty flag. I get it. Not a perfect left tackle. Gets paid a lot of money. But still, I mean, he's making Dan more money at this point, right? 3-year extension worth $75 million. That's a little bit more than what Dan Moore has for the Titans. I imagine that deal will be redone considering where the left tackle market is. 4 picks to Houston, 3rd and 7th in 2025, 2nd and 4th in 2026. Solid.
Okay.
But the Texans, to me, are not in acquire picks mode, And they certainly, in my opinion, are not in the market to give away their one good lineman. I mean, the Texans last season about got C.J. Stroud killed. He was sacked 52 times last year. Tunsil, according to True Media, 10th among offensive tackles in pass block win rate. The second time that Tunsil has been traded, I have no earthly idea what the Houston Texans are doing. And if I'm C.J. Stroud, I am calling Nick Caserio, I'm calling my front office saying, what in the world are you doing? What in the world are you doing? I mean, the worst thing that you can do for a young quarterback who didn't have an offensive line last year is to trade away the one good offensive lineman that you have. I think it makes no sense in a market where there are not a lot of good left tackles you can pick up, and you had one of the only ones.
I was definitely confused by the move. I mean, when you look at Laramie Tunsil's production in terms of, you said that, the rarity of that spot, and to have somebody that's very productive. I mean, we were talking about PFF, and you think about a grade in terms of very good, 76.5 overall. He was outstanding in pass blocking, 88.6%, 73.6 in run blocking. I mean, this guy was good. This guy is good.
Those his grades or his win rates?
These are his grades.
Okay.
Yeah. And he is 30 years old. So it shames me to feel like that if you hit 30 now in terms of any position in the NFL, but mostly, when you're talking about a running back or a wide receiver maybe, or a tackle, it's like immediately I feel like teams start to look a different direction.
Yeah.
And maybe this is what they were thinking of. Let's get ahead of the curve when it comes to getting a bag back and building for the future. But you're right. What the worry is about this team right now, Will, is can C.J. Stroud get back to being the C.J. Stroud he was his rookie year? Because he took a big step backwards last year, and I think you're exactly right. It was because there was a little bit of worry with the protection that he was getting, and he increased his interceptions by a lot too, so he was feeling the pressure. He is the one guy you can look at that says he did a damn good, solid job last year, and they're like, here we go, he's on the market.
Doesn't make any sense.
It is very weird.
Does not make any sense. 52 sacks for C.J. Stroud last year.
It's a lot.
Yeah. It's way too many. It's going to get him hurt.
It sure is.
If they trot him back out there behind a worse offensive line again. Who made the best move yesterday?
Well, I mean, and that's the thing. I think you could say, I think the Washington Commanders overall are doing some work in terms of what they're building for Jaden Daniels moving forward to continue his success. I would also say, and I don't know if this is technically what the move was yesterday, but I would say right now, I've been impressed with what the Chicago Bears are doing in terms of building up their offensive line for Caleb Williams. We just talked about Jaden Daniels and being able to assure that he can continue success. Caleb Williams needs to take a jump next year. And I do feel like Ryan Poles, as much as we've had issues with some of the moves, like I feel like they're doing business right now when it comes to the trades and the moves that they are doing. You had the trade for Joe Tooney, the Chiefs guard, and then Jonah Jackson signing, center Drew Dahlman signing. So I feel like they're doing what they need to do on that offensive line to make them contenders next year, because that was one of the biggest issues. So I don't have a move in particular. I liked the Chris Godwin move. I thought that, for Tampa Bay to reward this guy when all he has done is be a successful skill position player for him, to give Baker that guy back, I thought that was huge in terms of the I didn't expect that. I mean, Godwin is going to finish his career in Tampa Bay. I thought that was a good move too for the moves that happened specifically yesterday.
Juice on Twitter says, you trade Laramie Tunsil because you're going to have to pay C.J. Stroud and Will Anderson, get picks and replace with cheaper contracts. Yeah, not yet.
Not yet.
Mm-mm. You're not close to having to pay C.J. Stroud or Will Anderson. You are still very much in a
2 years, Will?
Rookie quarterback window. I mean, this is only going to be year 3 for C.J. Stroud. I mean, he'll have a 5th-year option. He's got 3 more years he can play on his rookie contract.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's a terrible move for the Texans. But I do like many of the ones you just mentioned, and a couple of those for the Bears in particular, who I think still could be in the left tackle draft market as well.
For sure.
To go with those guys. To me, it was DJ Reed of the Lions.
Yeah, it was a good move.
I thought this made a lot of sense. To me, they benefited from the Patriots overpaying for Carlton Davis. Lions lose him in free agency. I think they got a guy who's, I think you could make the argument, is better in DJ Reed. He just didn't get the shine in New York because he's playing opposite Sauce Gardner.
Yeah.
DJ Reed's yards allowed per coverage snap the last 3 seasons, 0.6, 1.0, and 0.8. 3 seasons that are better than the average number in that metric. In Seattle, he was a guy that was certainly productive. 13% target rate in 3 seasons in New York, just a little bit lower than average, despite playing opposite Sauce Gardner. So someone that still got a lot of attention, considering Sauce Gardner was locking down a lot of number 1 wide receivers in New York. He would take a lot of number 2s and was still targeted not very much because he was locking guys down. I think it's a good move for the Lions. I think he's someone that fits the culture of what Detroit is. Obviously a defense that was extremely banged up last season and that it has some very young pieces in their defense. DJ Reed is a really, really good fit at a pretty good cost. 3 years, $48 million.
Not bad.
He just doesn't get the shine in the market because he isn't Sauce Gardner, and he was teammates with him.
And that's a good way to look at it. I think sometimes we get so overwhelmed with the names, and I like Sauce Gardner. But you're right. You take away the shine a little bit when you're playing with a guy like that. Literally, he's got the bling everywhere. I think ESPN actually had DJ Reed ranked, I think, the top free agent when it came to just in terms of maybe even more than being just the cornerback top free agent. They looked at him as obviously somebody that had a lot of value, like you just had mentioned. And I think you look at maybe the playmaker part of it. I don't know if you consider him that. He's not getting like a ton of interceptions, piled up, but he's more of like a ball disruptor. So I feel like this guy is going to pass. He's going to break up passes. Like he's going to do all the little things that equate to big things in the end. So I think that's why he's so valued. I think he's going to fit right in there with the Lions too, that continue to kind of try to, be the team that they want to be now that they're also kind of down to 2 coordinators that they knew for so long.
Yeah. So honorable mention, Chiefs signing Jalen Moore for 2 years, $30 million. But again, this is the problem with the left tackle market. It is so dry that a guy with 12 career starts got paid $15 million a year.
12 career starts.
He's a backup. A career backup, Jalen Moore, who has started 12 times in his career, 5 games last season. He's Trent Williams' backup from San Fran, exclusively left tackle. But $15 million a year is legit money for a guy that has not started a lot, that has a significant amount of athleticism. They believe in him clearly more than their second-round pick, Kingsley Suamataia out of BYU from last season. But 83% pass block win rate would have been 3rd worst among tackles last season if he'd qualified, according to ESPN.com.
Yeah, that's a little interesting, but aren't the Kansas City Chiefs are kind of in a situation where they've got to figure out this line. I mean, they've made moves. They've let guys go. So this to them, I think, was still a young enough option. He's 27 years old, but there's a lot of work to be done there, Will. And for Patrick Mahomes, which we saw not even be Patrick Mahomes in that Super Bowl, they've got some issues in terms of that line. They've got to shore up. And this is a guy that's okay, but that's a lot of money, like you said, for a guy that you're just bringing in for what was the deal?
2 years, $30 million.
Yeah.
I believe the Titans would have signed him had they not gotten Dan Moore.
Yeah, I actually like Dan Moore more. You like what I did there?
Yeah.
But maybe that's because I've heard Ramon talk about him a lot.
Mm-hmm. He's more proven.
He is. And he's about the same
football.
age. He's a little younger, Dan Moore is.
Yep. 615-737-1045. Titans fans can breathe a sigh of relief. You avoided the Zach Wilson experience, but people around the league are very mixed on the former Jets quarterback who lands in Miami. We'll tell you what people are saying about the quarterback who was linked to the Titans but will not be a Titan, coming up next.
It's Ramon Foster for the Wellness Institute of Nashville. Right now, man, they have a deal going on. I feel special, okay, because it is a special deal, and it's somewhat named it after me. It's the Behind the Lines offer, okay, where there's a $37 consultation, and that includes a doctor's visit, x-rays if you need them, and your first treatment. And if you need more in-depth treatment, because you're part of the Zone family, guess what? They'll give you 50% off spinal decompression treatment. I've had it myself. I've enjoyed it. My back and neck feels a whole lot better because of it, all right? That's because Dr. Mitchell and Dr. Ashley just want you to get better. Listen, it's not just for athletes. It's for your everyday person, man. Albeit it might be for, the mom, the auntie, the dad, the uncle that just have those ongoing back issues, man, and you say to yourself, well, I didn't play sports. No, it doesn't have to be that. Your spine, I promise you, all those nerves go up and down, and it's one of those things where you want to get that space back in between it by getting on that state-of-the-art decompression machine, or like I did, the zero gravity machine too. They will find the best strategy to get you better fast, and they don't want to just keep you there. They want to get you out, get you back to your best. So start your road to a pain-free life, and yes, it is possible. Call today, the Wellness Institute of Nashville at 615-246-5009, or go to painisbad.com.
RKW is brewed by Scooters Coffee. Wrapping up hour 2 this morning on 104.5 The Zone. Download the Scooters Coffee mobile app today to order ahead and save $2 off your first mobile order. Stream it live on 104.5 The Zone TV, Facebook Live, YouTube, Twitter, or Twitch. So Zach Wilson reaches an agreement on a 1-year, $6 million fully guaranteed deal that could go up to $10 million with the Miami Dolphins. A 25-year-old who was the backup for Sean Payton in Denver last season. Now, what do you make, Kayla, of the fit for Zach in Miami, where, when you back up Tua, you have to understand you're probably going to play at some point this upcoming season.
That's facts right there, first and foremost. Second of all, I am still so confused on these teams willing to pay money for a guy that just hasn't been able to do anything up to this point of his career. Mind you, that he literally lost even a spot to be a backup for the Denver Broncos because they picked Jarrett Stidham over Zach Wilson. And that to me is saying something. If you are Sean Payton and you've obviously got your guy in Bo Nix, and you had an opportunity to pick who you wanted as your backup, and you picked Jarrett Stidham.
Well, I don't know if we know that, though, right? Zach Wilson might have wanted a place where he has a chance to play, and you're not going to play behind Bo Nix unless Bo Nix gets hurt. This gives him more of an ability to get in on the field in a place in Miami that always has to go to their backup quarterback with Tua's injury history.
And I get the fit. I do get the fit for Miami, considering what type of player Zach Wilson is. And I think, though, he has so much to prove yet, and he's had opportunities to do that with the Jets that he was never able to succeed. And I know he didn't get the playing time with the Broncos to see that at all. So it's just another example, Will, for me, of the NFL just continuing to feel like they can fix players.
Yep.
Sometimes players are fixable. In this situation, I just don't know if Zach Wilson can ever be that guy.
I think Miami and many others are banking on him being the most likely backup quarterback to pull a Darnold. And Albert Breer wrote about this yesterday on Twitter, said, based on what the people in Denver were saying about Wilson after the season, I would not dismiss this signing, which I think is interesting. Aditi Kinkhabwala, our friend from CBS Sports, was also talking about this yesterday on social media, that Sean Payton raved about Zach Wilson, saying, in our meetings, they were totally blown away, said he has the potential to be the young quarterback who was initially in a bad spot or wasn't quite as mature early and then went and got good coaching and development elsewhere. She writes, Aditi Kinkhabwala, quote, Sean Payton raved about him to our CBS crew all year. I loved watching how engaged and helpful to Bo Nix he was, and maybe he just needed some seasoning and coaching like Sam Darnold got in San Francisco. Are you buying that Zach Wilson could be that guy?
I can't buy in yet. And I have been wrong in terms of what happened with Sam Darnold, but I do feel like, again, Sam Darnold still has more to prove because that was just 1 year of it and it didn't happen in the postseason. And that's what you need out of a quarterback who's going to be revived, is they've got to be able to be successful at all aspects or at all parts of the year. Zach Wilson, I just look at his numbers, Will, and it's crazy. Like, he's played in 34 games in his career. His completion percentage is 57%. He's got over 6,000 yards passing, but he's got 23 touchdowns and 25 INTs. Mm-hmm. This guy has a lot of stuff to clean up, and maybe he did learn some things in Sean Payton's world this past year, but I got to see that happen. And again, if Tua Tagovailoa goes down, like, he's going to be thrusted into that position. That's the money he's making. He's the backup.
Well, $6 million, yeah. It's not a ton of money.
Right.
For a backup quarterback.
But he is the guy, right? Like you said, Tua's had injuries in the past. What's to say that, it doesn't happen in the future? I do think it is a fit for that, system, right. But I just don't know if he can be successful from the jump.
I think it's an interesting fit. I think with Mike McDaniel, it makes a lot of sense considering his skill set and his build and the similarities that he has to Tagovailoa and his strengths. I think it's a good deal for Miami. I really do. I think it's a reclamation project. I think he's probably going to get on the field. To be honest with you, lost out the backup quarterback battle in preseason to Jarrett Stidham last year. But anyone who has worked under Sean Payton, to me, got a master's level education in quarterbacking. And I think Bo Nix would have been a failure a lot of places he went last year. But again, he landed with Sean Payton. He landed in the right place. He landed with the quarterback guru of all quarterback gurus, in my opinion, over the last couple of decades of NFL football. So I'm intrigued. I'm not going to bet on him to be Sam Darnold. I think in the NFL, we love saying two things are the same that are just not the same at all.
Yeah.
And I think people are too dismissive of how good Sam Darnold was in 6 starts in 2022 with the Panthers. He wasn't terrible. Like, Sam Darnold was not a total one-hit wonder like people make him out to be in Minnesota last season. He did some decent things at times previously in his career, which is why going into last season, I was on the train of like, look, this guy's not terrible. Zach Wilson's been terrible. He, to me, is still very, early in his maturation process, but I'm intrigued. I'm glad the Titans didn't take that gamble. I think Miami, though, is in the position where they can for $6 million as a backup quarterback, and it makes a ton of sense.
Yeah.
615-737-1045. There is a national writer who loved the Dan Moore signing for the Tennessee Titans. That's not been common. A lot of people outside this market not as high on it. There is one national writer who gave it an A for the Tennessee Titans, and we'll tell you why coming up next.
We've got the trucks, all the trims, all the towing, all the bells and whistles, and all at Truck Month Savings. Two Rivers Ford is Ford Truck Central.
Is your concrete in need of repair? Maybe your sidewalk is shifting, your driveway is cracked and sinking, or your porch steps, maybe they've moved on you. Shifting concrete can create a dangerous situation and just trip hazard around your home, too. It's also a big eyesore. Shimon Foster, whatever's going on with your concrete, call United Structural Systems. Ask them about the polyurethane foam injections. You've heard about USS for a long time. It's the same company that's provided superior foundation repair and waterproofing to Middle Tennessee since 1994. Well, guess what? They can also fix your sunk and acetylene concrete. USS uses polyurethane foam injections to lift and repair your sinking concrete in a matter of minutes. Lifted concrete can be walked on immediately or even driven on after 30 minutes. So don't go through that long, expensive process of ripping out and replacing concrete. Reach out to the people that I trust. You can go to USSTN.com. That's USSTN.com, or call them 615-488-7855. United Structural Systems.
8 o'clock on the dot. Kicking off your Tuesday morning. Good morning for the 104.5 The Zone Studios. I'm Will Bowling. The New York Giants have made a big move this morning, taking Titans safety target Javon Holland on a 3-year deal worth $45 million as we begin day 2 of legal tampering in the NFL. Holland, a 4-year starter with the Miami Dolphins, is the 4th defensive player to join the Giants in free agency this week. Meanwhile, in Minnesota, 2-time Pro Bowl defensive tackle Jonathan Allen reached an agreement with the Minnesota Vikings this morning, signing a 3-year, $60 million contract. Allen was released by the Washington Commanders on March the 7th after the team failed to find a trade partner for the 2-time Pro Bowler who was entering the final year of his deal with a $15.5 million base salary. Yesterday, the Titans signed former Steeler Dan Moore to a reported 4-year deal worth $82 million. The team also added linebacker help, signing Broncos linebacker Cody Barton to a 3-year, $21 million deal. For all your foundation repair and your waterproofing needs, you need to visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone. RKW woken up and brewed by Scooter's Coffee with locations in White House, Mount Juliet, Rivergate, Smyrna, and Brentwood. Download the Scooter's Coffee mobile app today to order ahead and save $2 off your first mobile order. 615-737-1045, where you join us. Kayla Anderson and Will Bowling. Jay Hawk, Justin Hawkins is our producer. Ramon Foster will join us again tomorrow and was even cited in the F&M Bank chat this morning, just wandering through there like
was
Bigfoot.
He? I didn't see him.
Mm-hmm. He was. He notified the people that there is no time change in Arizona where he was. So
No
still
time
5:30
change?
there. Yeah, Arizona doesn't do the time change. They just roll right
but
through.
it is still early there.
Yeah, it was 5:30.
Okay, gotcha.
There
yeah,
when
they
he
do.
was
They stay the same.
talking with us.
That's what I loved about living there. They didn't ever do this backwards, forward stuff. That, by
Yeah.
the way, has that kicked anybody else's butt?
Yes.
Because it has kicked my butt, Will.
Yesterday, I'm a big nap guy.
I've been doing naps now.
Not as much as Ron Slay, but I am a nap guy where I need about 20 to 30 minutes a day on weekdays when we're up early. And man, yesterday it turned into like an hour.
Right.
And then I couldn't go to bed. So I was able to watch the finale of Paradise, which was last week.
That
And
was a good finale.
I was doing Tennessee baseball last week. Didn't get to see it until last night. Excellent show, by the way, on Hulu. If you haven't watched it. Yeah. Fantastic. But I am totally out of whack.
By the way, Will, remember I told you that one story when we did You're Not That Guy probably 6 months ago. I don't even know, 6-7 months ago. And I was like, yeah, I went to the, go get my massage because I was hurting in terms of my back.
Sure.
And the person talked the whole time. Even though my whole thing when I fill it out says I don't want to have a conversation.
No talking,
so yesterday, I was looking forward, Will, to taking a nap. And I booked an extra long massage just because my neck, need a little love.
Mm-hmm.
And I even mentioned it when I got in there.
Yeah.
And guess what I had to do the whole time?
Still had to talk?
The whole time.
That's tough.
The whole time.
Yeah, it's not fun.
And I'm not a mean person. So, I couldn't at any point just, get off and say, I can't do this.
Sure.
You need to be quiet.
Sure.
Lady was wonderful, but my goodness.
Yeah, I've only ever had one massage in my life, so I don't know know what it's
don't
like.
massages like
yeah,
that,
no,
unless you're Deshaun Watson.
It's just never, or Justin Tucker at this point.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but never really was a thing I did. But yeah, that I would definitely not want to talk either.
It's not good.
I would want to be in slumber.
Yeah, and I was like, at some points, I thought I was only giving 2-word answers to maybe hint.
Yeah, no, that's always the worst when they don't take the hint either.
Exactly.
Like same thing with getting a haircut sometimes.
Right.
Which I love my person I get a haircut from. But yeah, no, it's tricky seeing a random person or someone you don't have a relationship who wants to start a relationship with you.
Sure.
No, pass.
Just wasn't the day for it. I wanted to sleep.
I'm with you. Yeah, there's some days like Uber drivers sometimes. Sometimes I'm really conversational. Sometimes I just want radio silence,
Yes.
and there's rarely a middle ground.
There is never a middle ground.
See, at that point, they just want to vent.
Yeah,
yes,
They need somebody
absolutely.
to
Want
vent,
a
and you
relationship.
are their target.
That's
Fair enough.
exactly right.
That's right. So ESPN.com has a piece grading free agent moves yesterday and moves made around the NFL. Seth Walder likes the Dan Moore move to the Titans. Gives it an A. But I like it. I would not give it an A. I'd give it a B or a B plus at best. I'd probably closer to a B. But Seth Walder says we still don't know who will play Titans quarterback in 2025, but that person will have better pass protection with Moore now in the team. Coming off a nice season, he put up career highs in both pass block win rate, 93%. That's 11th best out of 66 qualifiers, and run block win rate. 76%, 23rd best. Adding offensive line can be a place where players take longer to develop. So I'm inclined, Seth Walder says, to invest in Moore's development. That becomes easy to do when considering who else was available on the tackle market. Cam Robinson isn't as good as Moore as a pass protector. Jalen Moore is unproven. He ended up with the Kansas City Chiefs and has worse numbers. And Jedrick Wills Jr., who has worked with Bill Callahan before, has several question marks attached to him. To me, Moore was the one to go with, and $20.5 million per year is not top-tier tackle money at all. Last year, Seth Walder adds, J.C. Latham and Nicholas Petit-Frere ranked 40th and 64th in pass block win rate among tackles. If Latham develops, the Titans could have a really nice pair of tackles, which is crucial for setting a quarterback up for success. I think that is a measured take from someone who is using some next-level stats and some analytics to evaluate left tackles, who clearly likes the projectability of your new left tackle in Dan Moore.
And that's, I think, more so why it got an A, because I'm with you. Like, I don't know if I would have just thrown out an A. You got to kind of earn that. But I do feel like he laid it out nicely. And when you do compare him to some of the other top tackles that were on the market, this probably does feel like the best fit for the Titans and what they want to do moving forward.
Yeah.
For the fact that he is still young and moldable, which I do think Bill Callahan does take a lot of pride in, being able to have at least a guy that he thinks has the tools to be moldable, because we saw with MPF, he just wasn't moldable.
Clearly not. It was not a workable player at right tackle last year.
Not at all.
Your floor gets a lot higher with Dan Moore. Mm-hmm. It does. And according to Pro Football Focus, he gave up 12 sacks last season. The context of that, according to our O-line expert, Ramon Foster, is that Russell Wilson takes away too many sacks and that they put him one-on-one a lot with elite pass rushers. To me, it's telling that Bill Callahan had worked with Jedrick Wills before and chose to work with someone he's never worked with before in Dan Moore versus Wills. That's interesting, first and foremost. I do think that when you look at the numbers, ESPN.com and True Media, one of their main sources, says that 13 sacks were allowed by Dan Moore last year. PFF says 12. The pass block win rate is really high. 11th best out of 66 qualifiers, 93%. To me, says that when he got beat, it was almost always for a sack.
Sure.
But he didn't get beat a ton. It was just guys were getting their money's worth against Dan Moore when he did get beat. He struggled against Myles Garrett last year. He struggled against Trey Hendrickson last year. Good news is you don't have to play those guys 4 times a year, and you don't see Baltimore 2 other times as well. That is a third of your games, and that is as good of a pass rush division as there is in the NFL. That is going to be a welcome sight for Dan Moore lining up against AFC South pass rushers versus AFC North pass rushers.
Yeah, and we discussed this a little bit earlier on, but, down the line, you would like for him to be able to handle his own against guys like that. Because when you are reaching the playoffs, which is something that the Titans want to do in the future, and he could possibly be on this team at that point, you want to be able to get to the point where you can say, okay, I'm not going to be dominated by those guys. Because, again, he is still very young, but he has the playing experience, which I think that's what I think the Titans really liked in him. But you're right. This year, let's just start with this year and what he can do this year for the Titans. And I do think that under Bill Callahan, he can develop into a better tackle, because clearly there is some room for growth. But I do think now the more that we lay it out, he was the best option for this team.
Yep.
You speak of what's happening this year. If you take a look at the schedule this year, obviously the home and away schedule hasn't been officially released, but you do know the opponents. Of course, you got the ones in your division, like a Daniil Hunter and the Texans, a Will Anderson, and then you go to the Jags, which you've got Josh Hines-Allen.
Yep.
The biggest things that he's going to face this year, Max Crosby re-signed with the Raiders, so you're going to face him.
Right.
That's in Las Vegas. The Arizona Cardinals yesterday signed Josh Sweat, so that's going to be another. Those are going to be your most elite pass rushers that you're going to face. They're great, but they're not on the level of Myles Garrett and Hendrickson.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, honestly, I don't think that this division is close to the talent in just those two guys, in Garrett and Hendrickson. Like, I know Josh Hines-Allen is good. I know Will Anderson's good. They're not Myles Garrett. They're just not. So, helpful to Dan Moore, helpful, obviously, to work with Bill Callahan, who clearly would have to give this a seal of approval to do it. But certainly, I think the market dictated a lot of money for Dan Moore, and if you want an elite player at the beginning of NFL free agency, you just have to pay a premium.
The market would have demanded. That's what I'm a little confused about, people. Like, again, the Titans are in this position because of a situation that happened a few years ago and the failed, first-round picks and the failed opportunities to get linemen that you actually could put in and keep in. So now Borgonzi is cleaning up still the mess of the offensive line.
Sure.
And so, I'm sorry, whoever you were going to get that you thought would be decent in free agency, you were going to pay a premium.
Yeah, and I think people will see the Morgan Moses deal and think, well, why didn't you just do that? Right? Like,
but that's not their plan.
3-year, $24 million, worth up to $28.5 million. The risk you are taking and the premium you are paying is for the age. Morgan Moses is 34 years old.
Right.
Morgan Moses would probably be your best option in 2025.
At
Mike
right
Borgonzi,
tackle.
Right, but then you would have J.C. Latham at left tackle,
but I think that's
like,
almost like the plan. I think
sure,
they kind of
but
wanted to do that.
But I think you could make the argument that in 2025, the better plan is to keep J.C. Latham where he is and go with Morgan Moses. Mike Borgonzi and this organization are clearly not just planning for 2025. They are in a rebuild. And when you are in a rebuild, you are looking for long-term options as cornerstone pieces to build a roster. Morgan Moses would have been a stopgap if you planned to draft a right tackle over the next 2 seasons. Clearly now, if all goes to plan, and if Dan Moore's good, the reason you do this deal is because you have got your cornerstone tackles on both sides for the foreseeable future. I'm willing to make that gamble in Bill Callahan coaching up Dan Moore if it means that we've got cornerstone tackles in Nashville for the next 5-6 years. Sign me up.
Because, Will, I honestly, I liked Morgan Moses. If that was the plan, that they were going to take a tackle and maybe have that right tackle learn under a year with Morgan Moses.
Yeah.
But now I clearly think they had a different plan because they're doing the flip-flop thing, which I think could work. Sure. And then they could go get other things in free agency because they have tons of holes to fill.
The thing I like about it is you made 2 positions better.
Yeah.
J.C. Latham is a better fit at right tackle, according to a lot of people smarter than me. And Dan Moore is a better left tackle than what J.C. Latham was last year. So J.C. Latham is a big upgrade on NPF. And I think Dan Moore is an upgrade on J.C. Latham. So that's 2 positions you got better at because you decided to do it this way. I'll take it.
You just got to see who's going to be right guard.
615-737-1045. When we come back, Tennessee spring practice open in Knoxville for an hour to the media yesterday. A ton of nuggets coming out of spring practice yesterday. Austin Price will join us coming up next, recapping that and taking a look at the SEC tournament for Vols hoops after this.
Nashville is one of the most happening cities here in the United States, and we all love living here. There's tons to do, but sometimes with a growing city, you want to find people that you can trust, including a real estate agent, and that is why you need to check out my friend Bernie Gallerani. Bernie Gallerani has years of experience. He also knows the neighborhoods and cares about your buying or selling needs. In fact, Bernie guarantees to sell your home in 30 days or less, or he'll just buy it from you. Finding the right home is going to take time. And for Charisse, it meant 6 months of searching for the perfect place. That's where Bernie Gallerani Real Estate made all the difference. From day one, the team was patient, answering every question, making the entire process smooth and stress-free. So when Charisse was ready, they found her perfect home. Bernie is the only real estate agent in Nashville recommended by Barbara Corcoran of Shark Tank and the only agent I would trust to sell my home. So give Bernie a call on his cell phone, 615-428-2644. That's 615-428-2644, or go to BernieGallerani.com.
RKW on 104.5 The Zone continues. Brewed by Scooters Coffee with locations in White House, Mount Juliet, Rivergate, Smyrna, and Brentwood. Download the Scooters Coffee mobile app today to order ahead and save $2 off your first mobile order. Kayla Anderson and Will Bowling. Justin Hawkins is our producer. Ramon back on the show tomorrow. We are efforting Austin Price.
Yes.
It is Pro Day in Knoxville. We are having trouble getting in touch with him. We'll see if we can manage that here in just a few minutes. If not, we'll try to do that coming up later in the week with Austin as spring practice continues and a very busy week continues in Knoxville. We do have some nuggets, Kayla, that we can at least react to here while we try to get Austin. Yesterday, Boo Carter working with wide receivers in Knoxville. How much does that to you ease the concern about Tennessee at the wide receiver position? Boo Carter potentially playing both ways next year for the Vols.
Well, first of all, we know that is something that if an athlete has the ability to do that nowadays, what we just saw in Travis Hunter, not comparing him to Travis Hunter, but there are opportunities for teams to use guys like that. And I feel like in this case, Boo Carter has a lot of athleticism in terms of his arsenal, and I'm not surprised at this at all, Will. I think we even spoke about it.
Yeah, we have a lot.
Before the season ended even last year of what he could possibly do if he did come back here to Tennessee. And didn't he want to be involved on this side of the ball?
It was reportedly part of the deal that he struck to stay at Tennessee instead of entering the transfer portal.
Yeah. So I'm intrigued to see what he could do to help out that wide receiver group. We've heard from Austin Price and Brent Hubbs before on our show that this wide receiver group is a little unproven. It is, there is some youthfulness to it. And we all are in agreement, too, that Nico's got to elevate these guys, but they've also got to be a lot better than what we saw last year.
Sure. The note from VolQuest yesterday, Boo Carter got some run on offense, working in the slot specifically. Was locked up once by Jacoby Thomas, but also made a catch later in the day. Amari Jefferson, a guy who continues to work his way back from a little off-season injury. Adding did not take part in drills going up against the defense, from what VolQuest could tell. 2 highlight catches, though, for Mike Matthews.
Nice.
This is the year for Mike Matthews to be the guy. And certainly, I think as we talk about pressure on Nico Iamaleava to be him, to be the guy, to be the 5-star, Mike Matthews is going to have to live up to his star rating as well. It's someone who is very highly touted coming out of high school. They need playmaking ability that they did not have last season. Tennessee just didn't have that ability to, beyond Dante Thornton and really a couple Brew McCoy plays, take a short route for 60, for 70. And you saw that in Oklahoma when Brew McCoy did it on a slant. You saw it against Vanderbilt with Dante Thornton. But Tennessee needed to have more singles that turned into triples through the air to help out Nico Iamaleava. It is a major question mark going into next season.
I think with Mike Matthews, too, and you said, he's got to take a big step forward, and he could definitely be that number one guy for Nico Iamaleava. There were times last year when I think a lot of people were calling for more, out of Mike Matthews in terms of play him more, get him out there more. And so now, the world is your oyster, Mike Matthews, and you chose to come back here as well. So I agree. I think he is who sets the tone in terms of the wide receivers, and he's still young.
Right.
But you've kind of got to step up in terms of the leadership and the production.
Totally.
A little update on Austin Price.
Yep.
He is in the Bahamas on a boat. So he is unavailable today.
So we're thinking he's at Pro Day, and he is in the Bahamas.
Yep, I texted him and he texted back. He said, "I have no service. I'm in the Bahamas on a boat." So we will touch back next week.
Thanks for the heads up, Austin.
Anyway, I'm glad to learn this on air. Thank you, Austin.
My God.
Anyway,
be
Brent
careful
Hubbs
of the
Friday.
sharks. I heard they're rabid down there.
Brent Hubbs Friday at 7:20. Are they really?
Yeah, they're taking over the Bahamas and Turks and Caicos.
Really?
Yeah.
I was down there last spring. I didn't know about that.
Right, and I was down there over Christmas.
Okay.
And I'm I just missed it by 2 months.
Sure. Okay, well, there you go.
Be careful, Austin.
No Austin this morning. One other note quickly on the Vols I think was interesting from VolQuest and these nuggets was about quarterback beyond Nico Iamaleava. and Brent Hubbs and Volquest kind of with some nuggets that Jake Merklinger looks like a different guy.
Really?
Some of the buzz coming out of camp. Him taking a step, and maybe I'm just, as a person, always obsessed with backup quarterbacks and what that is because the Titans have had to go to so many of them. I've seen the Vols had to rely on so many of them when their quarterback stinks through a lot of my college time there. That's a major question mark without Gaston Moore in that room, having to either rely on the true freshman George McIntyre or the redshirt freshman and Jake Merklinger. They need someone to probably play a role there this season, and especially considering Nico Iamaleava couldn't play the second half against Mississippi State. That happens this year. I think you're much more worried than you were last year with Gaston Moore.
Right, because you had the experience a little bit more. And in this case, you just mentioned redshirt freshman and freshman.
Yep.
And so it's almost like, okay, it's a challenge for both of them, I think, because I think both would like to win that backup spot.
Sure.
But I think you're right. I think that the Vols need to feel very comfortable with whoever does do that.
Yep.
So I think spring ball is going to be huge for both of those guys. Who would you rather see win that, Will, is my question.
Merklinger.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it will be Merklinger.
Yeah.
Just Josh Heupel's made it clear that the benefit of the doubt goes to the incumbent, goes to the veteran. And I think sometimes that's actually a problem Tennessee has to a fault. I think oftentimes they're too reliant on experience and just time in the system.
Yeah.
But at quarterback, I think that's valid. And George McIntyre does not need to be thrown into the fire.
Sure.
He needs to be learning the offense. He needs to be, putting on the extra weight that you have to, as a freshman and a guy that I imagine will continue to put on some muscle and get in that strength program that Tennessee, I think, has a solid piece of. So it sounds like it's Jake Merklinger's QB2 job, barring something, significant.
It is a
there.
change, though, Will, of what we've seen in the past when we had the Hendon Hooker and the, Miltons and kind of the more experienced quarterbacks that they did things in a different way. And
Totally.
I think it is just, it's a new beginning in a way because these are all young and Nico's still young.
It is by far the most inexperienced quarterback room Josh Heupel has ever had at Tennessee. Not even close. Not even close, because he inherited Hendon Hooker, and he brought in Joe Milton after watching Hendon Hooker. Then, obviously, Hendon goes back in his first season. He has Joe Milton take over after that. You had Taven Jackson, who was there originally, but he was a third string.
Yeah.
So, totally. Yeah, it is as inexperienced as Tennessee's ever been at quarterback. No doubt about it. Some breaking NFL news as another Titans target is off the board, but not with the Tennessee Titans. Guard Will Freeze from the Indianapolis Colts is headed to the Minnesota Vikings. 5 years, $88 million. Whoa. So one of the top interior offensive linemen is off the board officially. That is someone the Titans were linked to no longer. So there you go.
Okay.
Will Freeze off the board.
I think a lot of people were excited and linking him here.
Yep.
But he got a big deal somewhere else. And so at least it's, not somebody you're going to be really facing.
I don't think that you would have paid $20.5 million to Dan Moore and then doubled down with $20 million a year or close to it for a guard as well. I think you would likely do one or the other. That's a lot of money to dedicate to the offensive line.
I agree.
When you're already paying Lloyd Cushenberry, and now you add in more as well.
Do you think there's any chance, Will, at this point that they do now that they feel like they have the right tackle spot, good to go with J.C. Latham, that they do bring back Dylan Radins?
Dylan Radins? Maybe. Wouldn't shock me.
I haven't seen his name really out there connected to any teams, but...
No. There have really been no rumblings about Radins other than just coming here again. It is interesting. I mean, Radins is a tricky one because now you are at the position where you can find a day 3, maybe not day 1 starter, but you can find a late draft starting right guard this year. That is not a premium position that you have to spend significant amount of capital on.
Sure.
I would lean more towards them doing that. Or finding a cheaper Brandon Scherf type, who Bill Callahan has coached before, to come in there. I just feel like if you're going to go cheaper at guard, you're not going to be doing a deal like that at the beginning of free agency. You can wait and find a Brandon Scherf type later. for me personally.
And they need depth also, guys. I mean, this is the other thing. I'm talking about like who will start on this line. One thing is for sure, like they also have to have depth pieces. And I know Andrew Rupchich is got a new deal, but I mean, they need to continue to kind of like have backup plans for these positions. And MPF is still here. So I don't think any of you guys want to hear that, but
no,
he's technically backup now.
We have seen people ask us, could they move NPF to guard? I do not see any scenario of that.
I don't either.
No.
I'm sorry, you lost your job last year in terms of starter.
He's a tackle. He's just a really bad one.
Yeah.
Who was not drafted by this GM. He was drafted 2 GMs ago now.
Yes, he was.
Yeah, that's right.
Nope.
All right, so top free agents entering day 2. Available guys. Let's go rapid fire down this list. Ari Meyerhoff has this out. He's an aggregator, but let's be honest,
Yes,
this is a
he
list of who is still out there.
Okay.
He's not giving us a lot of news here. I'd prefer to go straight to the people who are actually breaking the news, but this is just a list of top free agents entering day 2. Let's go interested or not interested. Starting with Aaron Rodgers. Interested or not interested? I feel like we have our answer. Not interested from the Titans.
No, and we're doing this on if the Titans are interested.
Well, I mean, either one. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I mean, I would still take him as a bridge quarterback if they were drafting Cam Ward. I still think he's one of the better one-year bridge quarterbacks, but we have clearly known now that his market is much bigger in terms of what teams are going to probably pay him. So I don't feel that would work out.
Pass.
Yeah.
Titans are passing. I will also give a hard pass for Aaron Rodgers at this point. 2 wide receivers out there, Stephon Diggs and Keenan Allen.
Okay.
Wide receiver is interesting because this is not a good wide receiver free agent market.
Nope.
There are options there, obviously, in the draft. Of the wide receivers, Stephon Diggs, Keenan Allen, Amari Cooper, Tyler Lockett, who are out there, are any of them fits for the Titans in your opinion?
I almost think like, okay, so they have Calvin Ridley.
Yep.
But that's pretty much it. I would almost, I don't know. I think with Keenan Allen, I feel like Keenan Allen could be a
Stoney Keeley is on the Keenan Allen train as someone who's interested.
I don't like Stephon Diggs. I don't think you need that baggage. You're coming off of an injury. I don't want that.
Right now, PFF starting wide receivers for the Titans are Calvin Ridley, Traylon Burks, and Mason Kinsey.
So nobody.
So like you said, the Titans have Calvin Ridley, a wide receiver.
Exactly. So you're saying there's one.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the guy I think out of the list I see I would be the most comfortable with. It's not the best option either, but what else do they have, Will? I don't understand. I feel like you're going to have to go get a guy in the draft maybe for a slot spot.
Right. Keenan Allen last season, 15 starts, 744 yards, 7 touchdowns. He is 32 years old. He will turn 33 in April. I mean, for the right price, yes, I would be interested in Keenan Allen. I mean, we're talking
cheap.
Yeah, we're talking a year 8, a year 7.
And I get Tyler Lockett. He continues to be, but he's still. I mean, he's to the point where the Seattle Seahawks, they let him go for a reason.
I don't think Keenan Allen is as much of a fit for what Brian Callahan wants out of the slot position, honestly. Maybe I'm typecasting the bigger slot guys more so than I should be. But to me, like a Jack Besh in the draft type, a Tyler Boyd type that is a bigger slot target who can work underneath versus the smaller speed guy that isn't going to play between the hash marks as much is more the Brian Callahan type.
Yeah, and Tyler Lockett is also, by the way, Tyler Lockett's 32 years old as well. He's older in his career.
Right.
I think he's actually getting connected to Houston in some accounts. So,
interesting.
Yeah.
I would be interested in Evan Ingram. I think tight end is a position I'm very intrigued in for the Titans this offseason because obviously Chikakonkwo has shown you flashes. To me, he has not shown enough to just be given the keys again to tight end 1. I would like for the Titans to either draft or sign a tight end that can compete with him and hopefully bring the best out of him because Josh Wiley is not that guy to me that's going to compete with him for tight end 1.
Right.
He's had opportunities. He's not taken it. Chikakonkwo needs someone to kick him in the butt a little bit at training camp and to force him to be the best version of himself for an entire season versus just a little bit of training camp where we say, oh, what about Chig? And then about 4 weeks of the season, we'll go, wow, Chig, a part of the offense. And national broadcasters who will come in and take a snapshot of the team will say, they really like this Chig guy because maybe they'll see him for the 3 weeks that he's really good and not the 2 months or the 3 months that you would really need to actually be a guy. Evan Ingram is really intriguing to me, and that is a connection to Nick Holtz, your offensive coordinator, who was in Jacksonville with Evan Ingram in his best season as a Jack.
And that's the thing. I think that I would have to be convinced on if I were the Titans in terms of taking him after what happened last year. Because you're right.
Yeah.
I mean, years prior to that, he had played in all 17 games in 2022, 2023. He actually dealt with some injuries last year, only played in 9 games. His production went way down, obviously, because of that. 963 yards in 2023 with 4 tutties. This last year, just 365, 1 touchdown. I'd have to be convinced that he could really, jump back into being productive after the injury. He's 30 years old. This is a deep, tight end class in terms of finding talent, Will. I'm almost happy if they were to draft a tight end that they could feel like could push Chig, like almost that younger competition, being able to push Chig to be somebody from the start, not just towards the end of the season. And then there was one more note going back to the wide receiver spot. I actually totally agree with you, Alan, in the F&M Bank chat. He wants to see Bryce Oliver given more opportunity. I'm going to tell you this right now.
Sure.
They are going to give him more opportunities. They are.
Have to.
I mean, first of all, you don't have anyone, but I think they were really, really high on him. Ryan Stonehouse told me at the end of the season, too, in terms of a special teamer and returning. He specifically said, I love Bryce Oliver and what his future could be. So
yeah, I mean, I think especially if Nick Westbrook-Akine is not brought back, you could see maybe Bryce Oliver step into a role like that. But I don't know. It's hard for me to believe a ton and giving a guy like a role within the offense when all the guy's done is really be a practice squad guy and make a couple of catches. Like I don't know. We love giving guys these flowers, I think, oftentimes before they really earn it.
Yeah.
And I think he's probably the guy in that boat who the untapped potential fascinates us. But I do think he's going to have to get more reps because I'd rather give him the reps than, sign another 33-year-old wide receiver who's just going to come here, collect a paycheck, and play 6 games because he gets hurt.
Right. And Bryce Oliver is not from the one from UT Martin.
No, he's Youngstown State.
Yeah, that's Youngstown State.
Go Penguins.
UT Martin is, why am I blanking?
Colton Dowell.
Colton Dowell, and he missed all last year recovering from that injury, except for the end. He came back at the very end.
I think Bryce Oliver probably begins this offseason higher up in the hierarchy than Colton Dowell does.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, that's where, what have you done for me lately?
Exactly.
Injury part of it, unfair, but that's part of the process. 615-737-1045 is our number as we wrap up hour 3, open for your phone calls. If you want to give your thoughts on what the Titans did yesterday, what you want them to do today. Interesting stats comparing 2 veteran quarterbacks who are still available. Who has the better 2025, Russell Wilson or Aaron Rodgers? We'll compare the 2 of them coming up next. RKW is brewed by Scooters Coffee on 104.5 The Zone with locations in White House, Mount Juliet, Rivergate, Smyrna, and Brentwood. Download the Scooters app today to order ahead and save $2 off your first mobile order. Wrapping up Hour 3 this morning here on the show. You can stream us on the 104.5 The Zone app and get us on the favorite podcast channel as soon as the show wraps up. Between Russell Wilson and Aaron Rodgers, who do you think, Kayla, has the more successful 2025 season, regardless that neither of these guys are probably going to be Tennessee Titans at this point?
Yeah. So when I look at these two, and I think the first thing we think of is, okay, they're older veteran quarterbacks that don't have a ton left in terms of years of playing football. They've had success in the past. Aaron Rodgers, Super Bowl, Russell Wilson, Super Bowl. So they're in somewhat ways equal, but Aaron Rodgers is the better talent when it comes to his overall career. Russell Wilson is actually a little bit younger, though, than Aaron Rodgers. I mean, Russell Wilson's 36 years old.
Right.
Aaron Rodgers is 41. So Russell still has, I feel like, some years left in him. Both have kind of had injuries in the past couple of years. We saw with Aaron Rodgers, he was healthy last year, but the year before, he's knocked out the whole season. Russell Wilson started the season with the nagging injury. Mm-hmm. Do you remember what that was, Will? Was it was something with his foot?
Russell Wilson?
Yeah, when he started the season. That's why Justin Fields initially took over for him, because there
calf injury.
Calf injury. There it is.
There you go.
So they're both dealing with the failing of the body at this point. However, I do think Aaron Rodgers, in terms of just next year, could probably have a little bit more success just in terms of what he can still do with his arm. I know he's not the most mobile guy.
Yeah.
Russell Wilson is not now the most mobile guy, and that's what helped him in his career early on, was a mobility part of him.
Sure.
I think Russell Wilson almost scares me more in the pocket with, how he's not aware.
Both of them are going to have good offensive lines.
Exactly. So I don't think it's a big one over the other, but I'll give Aaron Rodgers the benefit of the doubt just by a little bit of being more successful where he is next year.
I think it's Russ. I think when you look at their numbers compared last season, pretty much the only areas where Aaron Rodgers was better was total production. Mm-hmm. When you go per game and per attempt and take in the context of how these games were being played and how much these teams were running the football, I think Russell Wilson was far better. 5 points better in passer rating last year, Russell Wilson, 95.6 versus 90.5. His yards per attempt, just over a half a yard better. QBR, 3 points better. Touchdowns to interceptions was better. He's younger. Completions of 20-plus yards per game, better for Russell Wilson. Marginally better completion percentage, but again, very similar. Mm-hmm. So at this point, it feels like it's Aaron Rodgers to Pittsburgh and Russell Wilson to the New York Giants. Really, really interesting. The fit with Brian Daboll in New York, and with the desperation that organization has. The Giants picked a really bad time to be bad, and my goodness, if they had the number one pick, it feels even more obvious that they would just take Cam Ward, even more so than it is here, because they do have some better pieces. They have Malik Neighbors. Mm-hmm. You could pair up a young quarterback to Malik Neighbors, for the foreseeable future, and they don't really have the luxury of waiting around at the beginning of a rebuild. They are at the end of the road with Joe Shane and with Brian Daboll. So they have to go with the win now, or what's the best possible, the biggest risk we could take. Like, they don't have the ability to just sit and wait, because the Titans have Mike Borgonzi at the beginning of a regime trying to build this thing out for the foreseeable future. But Aaron Rodgers at Pittsburgh is just a really weird and fascinating fit to me on if that works or not.
It is, and just in terms of like who Aaron Rodgers is and what he's brought with him wherever he's gone. Towards the end of his career in Green Bay, we know the complications that were happening. Then when you go to New York and you pretty much hold up the organization and tell them everything that you want, and then it's still not successful. Honestly, I can also probably say that I feel comfortable saying they regressed in many ways, even though they had still a pretty good defense. They got their coach fired. Nothing worked. And so I do believe that some of that comes with Aaron Rodgers and just the toxicity that is Aaron Rodgers. But what I have heard about him and Mike Tomlin's relationship is they've always had a pretty good relationship.
Sure. Yep.
And I think we spoke about this a little bit on the show yesterday, Will, that it might be the best spot for Aaron Rodgers to, at least next year, find his way back to helping his team win games. So not just put up like good stats, but actually helping his team win games and making players better still. But you're right. The line has got to be ready to go.
Yep.
And you have to know exactly what you're getting in Aaron Rodgers. And I do think Mike Tomlin is good with navigating some tough personalities. He's had some of them there. So I do think it's the best fit. And it is weird, though. I will say I never thought Aaron Rodgers would be in Pittsburgh this
Just one of those jerseys that doesn't make sense. Like envisioning Aaron Rodgers in like a floppy, loose arm sleeves Pittsburgh Steelers jersey.
It's odd.
Odd to me. He does have, I think, an affinity for Pittsburgh, considering Mike McCarthy, who he got along with so well, is Pittsburgh through and through. He is a Pittsburgh guy, and he's talked about that before, of like he's got an appreciation for Pittsburgh because Mike McCarthy is Pittsburgh. On the Giants note, though, going back to that and how Russell Wilson could fit there, I don't think we talk enough about how good Malik Neighbors was last year with just wretched quarterback play.
Yeah.
15 games. He only started 13 games. He had 1,200 yards last season.
It's impressive.
7 touchdowns with just random dudes throwing him the football. Malik Neighbors, to me, still has like that Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase level ceiling.
Sure.
And again, if I am a recruiter or if I'm an offensive coach at LSU, I'm just everywhere you go in the facilities, I just got picture of those guys up on the wall. I mean, it is unbelievable that Brian Kelly went 9-4 with Jaden Daniels, Malik Neighbors, and Brian Thomas Jr. all in the same offense. Like it is legitimately impressive how much Brian Kelly fumbled the bag on having those 3 guys on offense. And they had Emory Jones and
Sure did.
and Will Campbell at tackle. Like
Sure did.
Unbelievable the amount of NFL players they had on that offense that just totally squandered that season.
And that's a story for another day in terms of where LSU is at and how much faith people should have in LSU.
Yeah.
Because that is right there, blatant of like kind of mishandling what he had. And if you are able to get that back, But yeah, when you look at the Giants, that says a lot about Malik Neighbors in terms of you did this all with, Danny Dimes for a little bit, Drew Lock and Tommy DeVito.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
I know.
So, I don't know. It's a weird place to be right now with 2 guys that are on the hot seat in terms of their GM and their head coach.
No
but
doubt.
Russ doesn't have many other options at this point.
No, he does not. Certainly does not. And Paul Gaharski with the report, the Titans are not one of the teams in the mix for Russell Wilson, which makes sense considering what we're going to talk about next. Is it just a foregone conclusion now? Is Cam Ward the new Tennessee Titans quarterback, considering the inaction the Titans had at the quarterback position yesterday? We'll reset the headlines and we'll dive into that next. 9:01 from the 104.5 The Zone studios. Good morning. I'm Will Bowling. Another Tennessee Titans target off the board in the last hour of the show. Guard Will Freeze from the Indianapolis Colts. He is headed to the Minnesota Vikings for a 5-year, $88 million contract. One of the top interior offensive linemen on the market is now off the board here for the Titans. And the Minnesota Vikings, they have been busy this morning as they also signed two-time Pro Bowl defensive tackle Jonathan Allen to a 3-year, $60 million contract. According to ESPN's Adam Schefter, Allen was released by the Commanders on March 7th, meaning he is allowed to officially sign today. The Minnesota Vikings officially announcing that deal already. He was entering the final year of his deal with a $15.5 million base salary and no more guaranteed money remaining in Washington. The New York Giants, they took another Tennessee Titans target at safety. This time, it's Javon Holland, a 3-year deal worth $45 million, according to Adam Schefter. Holland, a 4-year starter with the Dolphins, is the 4th defensive player to sign with the Giants in free agency this week. The Titans, in addition to adding left tackle Dan Moore, linebacker Cody Barton, they also brought back a couple of their own free agents yesterday, signing defensive tackle Sebastian Joseph Day to a 1-year deal worth a max of $7.5 million and $5 million guaranteed. They also agreed to terms on a new contract with cornerback Darrell Baker. For all your foundation repair and your waterproofing needs, you need to visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone. One more hour brewed up for you, courtesy of our friends at Scooters Coffee, who power the show. Locations in White House, Mount Juliet, Rivergate, Smyrna, and Brentwood. Download the Scooters Coffee mobile app today to order ahead and save $2 off your first mobile order. 615-737-1045 is the number. As we transition to 60 more minutes, Kayla Anderson and Will Bowling, Jay Hawk, Justin Hawkins is our producer. Ramon will be back with us tomorrow. Quarterback dominoes are falling all around the league. Eagles trade Kenny Pickett to the Browns. Justin Fields signs with the Jets. Zach Wilson is a Dolphin. And, of course, Sam Darnold is a Seattle Seahawk, much to the dismay of Kayla Anderson. Does this just mean it's Cam Ward or bust for the Tennessee Titans at this point as the market dwindles and it looks like Aaron Rodgers and Russell Wilson are headed elsewhere?
So the front lobe of my brain says, yes, Will, absolutely. Not just because I've been a Cam Ward advocate since day one, but because where all the other dominoes have fallen at this point, I just don't see there being a logical now solution for the Titans to not, if they weren't to draft Cam Ward. And I'm not saying Cam Ward's going to be phenomenal coming out of the gates. I do feel like maybe having still a bridge quarterback here would have been good. But what other options do you have? And then on top of it, you're still the team with the number 1 overall pick, and you have the best quarterback available at that point. And if they don't pick him at that point, I think that's wild, because even if you get a Mac Jones here, which it looks like that could be the other thing that they're going to do, I still think that that is going to be a nightmare of a season where maybe you think you can revamp his career. But if you're Brian Callahan, you want to do everything you can do to save your job. So I feel like that is drafting the quarterback, bringing in Mac Jones, and then having whoever your third quarterback is, whether that's Will Levis or Mason Rudolph or whoever it might be.
Right.
I think, though, Will, that this is a glaring sign that they have to draft a quarterback.
I think it is tricky because you don't necessarily draft for the next season, especially not at quarterback. Just because there is a bad free agent market does not mean that you have to take Cam Ward because you might not believe in Cam Ward if you're the Titans. Maybe you do, maybe you don't.
Yeah.
I think the tricky thing is, though, this is more than just a bad free agent market now at quarterback. This is barren wasteland.
Yeah.
There's tumbleweed tumbling through the quarterback market. I mean, it's Mac Jones. It's Daniel Jones, who Stephen Holder says, national reporter covering the Colts for ESPN a couple minutes ago, says it's between the Vikings and Colts for Daniel Jones.
Yep.
So he's probably out. I mean, at this point, it does feel like Mac Jones is QB2 if they decide to go that route. That's the only other name that's really been linked to the Titans who's still out there at quarterback. It's just not ideal. It's really, really, really not ideal because in a perfect world, you would have had a cheaper, middle-of-the-road veteran quarterback to bring in this year to stabilize things, regardless of how you felt about Cam Ward. Do you believe there is projectability that Mac Jones could have a renaissance as a starting quarterback, or is he only being brought in to just be a backup quarterback?
I think the only way they look at Mac Jones as being a renaissance type of quarterback is that Brian Callahan is selling them on this, because I do feel like Brian Callahan feels like he is still a developer of quarterbacks. He has said that. He has said that's what he takes pride in, and it would be somebody that he would be picking, not he's coming to Tennessee saying this is what you have to work with in Will Levis. If it is something where that is your starter and you're not drafting Cam Ward, it would be Brian Callahan having to heavily convince them that this is why we should just do that, and then we can still maybe be in the market for trading down. I don't know who has the most say. I know Mike Borgonzi says he does, but Brian Callahan also doesn't want to lose his job next year.
Yeah.
So I think there is always opportunity for quarterbacks to revamp their careers. I just don't think this is necessarily right now the best place to do that.
Sure.
If you're Mac Jones. And again, if I have all my bases covered, I just want to draft the quarterback, bring in the bridge, or bring in a more veteran player, and then have your third guy. What about Jacoby Brissett, though?
I think Jacoby Brissett is who you bring in if you draft Cam Ward.
Me too. I don't think we've talked about him enough.
That's a different kind of profile of quarterback at this point. Yeah.
And we know that he can actually start too. So if any way you don't want to feel the pressure of, and you don't think maybe Cam Ward from the jump is ready to get out there with this line, maybe you just put in Jacoby Brissett, who's been a starter before in his career. Put in Jacoby Brissett. He knows his role at this point in what he could be doing, being yanked out halfway through the season.
Sure.
I almost think that makes more sense than some of these other guys if you want to bring in what's left over in free agency.
So if it is Cam Ward, if that's the direction we're heading, if the inaction at quarterback yesterday and the lack of interest in Russell Wilson and Aaron Rodgers tells us, yep, they're convinced. They like Cam Ward enough. But what is it about Cam Ward that you like the most that gives you hope and reason to believe he would be successful here as a Tennessee Titan?
Man, I just think he is a guy that is not going to stop until he's successful. I really do. I feel like the more I've dug into not just watching Cam Ward at Washington State and overcome different offensive coordinators there and what goes on in a smaller type of school, where there's not a lot of money and there's not a lot of eyes on you, but you're still expected to be the guy. Like, he handled everything there so well. Then you go to the bigger stage where you're able to now say, hey, can I now do this at a big, huge program? And he was able to do that with a different offensive coordinator.
Yeah.
And also, he took a lot of pressure on himself when that defense was crap. That defense was crap. And I know that a lot of people say, well, he threw the ball away or he didn't, take care of the ball. A lot of times he had to take risks to help win games. I just think, Will, I'm so confident in the type of studier, the type of football guy that he is. All he cares about is the game and wanting to prove people wrong. And I think that he does it in a good way, though. It's not like his teammates don't love him. Every place he's been, his teammates love him. So I just think he'll find a way to be successful wherever he goes. It might take a second, but I think he's going to find a way.
My concern about Cam Ward is that he is what the Titans just passed on yesterday, that he's Zach Wilson, to be totally honest with you. To me, a lot of the things and a lot of the characteristics we have heard about Cam, we were saying about Zach Wilson. Hey, he's maybe not the premier prospect, but considering this class, he is a legitimate option. I mean, he was number 2 overall pick by the New York Jets in 2021. And Zach Wilson was seen as hero ball, big arm, scramble around, make a ton of throws, Mahomes adjacent, right? And again, it's not a one-to-one comparison. To me, I think it's a valid comp because we talk about Cam Ward solving a lot of his turnover problems last season. He had 7 interceptions compared to 39 touchdowns. Zach Wilson had 3 picks as a junior at BYU. He had 33 touchdowns to only 3 interceptions. He had solved his interception problem, and he elevated BYU. That's the other argument I hear for Cam Ward a lot. Well, he elevated Miami, elevated Washington State. BYU was 11-1 with Zach Wilson his junior season, albeit in a worse schedule. He did not play as many great teams as Miami did, but let's be honest, like Miami was not exactly in a murderer's row ACC last year either. I see a lot of the same buzzwords and hear a lot of the same things about those 2 guys, and that is what gives me concern that the Titans could break Cam Ward here, just like the Jets broke a guy in Zach Wilson who might still be successful elsewhere, but was not great with the New York Jets, no doubt about it.
So I will say this, like breaking a quarterback is a real thing in the NFL, especially when you're going to a team that's high up there because those teams are there for a reason, right? The Jets are the best breaker of quarterbacks. Also, I'd put the Browns in there too. But yes, the Titans have not had the greatest history in terms of elevating quarterbacks. They've had their own issues. But I cannot compare Cam Ward to Zach Wilson.
Why not?
I never liked Zach Wilson coming out of college. I thought he was way overhyped.
What did you not like about him?
I just felt like Zach Wilson, first of all, you saying he elevated his team. Yes, he helped BYU be a good team, but it was just BYU. Like, it wasn't like he was going to different places and continuing to prove that he was a good quarterback at every single level. I just feel like when we looked at Zach Wilson, he was just overhyped because of the class he was in as well. I mean, and you could probably say, well, that's about Cam Ward.
That's what I'm saying about Cam Ward. That's why I think it's a good comparison.
I just think that, don't you think they're different athletes?
I don't.
Why?
I think they're very similar. The way they play, the way they have the big arms, the way they can move around in the pocket, like the
Zach
mobility.
Wilson doesn't come off as a true gamer to me. And
he did to me. I watched him beat Tennessee on a,
I don't know.
Last second play.
That's also, I don't know. It's a guy that was in Utah his whole entire, career. He went to the big city where I just feel like he was overwhelmed as well. Like, he didn't have the environment changes. He didn't have the differences in, offenses that he had to adapt to each time and prove that he could do it. He kind of just was where he was and he was comfortable where he was. And then the minute that he had to go to the next level, it's like he never had the ability to really elevate himself. Maybe, though, that's his path in the NFL. Maybe he is the next Sam Darnold when it comes down to it. He needs to change his environment and knowing how to overcome things. I just think Cam's proven that part of it.
Yeah.
And I think that's why I'm comfortable with he can succeed at this level where he gets drafted.
I don't know. I mean, he elevated BYU from 7-6 to 11-1, going from 2019 to 2020. And I saw him complete a bomb in person on 4th and 20-something. To beat I know, albeit Jeremy Pruitt Tennessee team. That's not Tennessee now, but we heard a lot of good things about gamer and big arm and mobility, and that is my concern of the floor for Cam Ward. Now, ceiling might be closer to Jaden Daniels or heck, even Mahomes. I get that. I'm concerned, though, that the supporting cast around Cam here is going to make him be a lot closer to his floor than his ceiling. So you better give the guy time, and you better have somebody in place to start this year if you're going Cam Ward.
Look at that Coastal Carolina game when Zach Wilson played them.
Sure.
It was not good.
We can cherry pick bad performances by every prospect.
I don't ever feel like I was ever convinced that Zach Wilson was the guy. I think he was so just blown out in terms of what he was. But again, I've watched a lot of Cam Ward. I didn't watch a ton of Zach Wilson back in the day. So
there you go. Well, we'll bring
That's that.
Justin Melo into the discussion coming up next. The Draft Network, Broadway Sports Media, great insight on free agency. We'll talk about the Cam Ward fit with the Titans, if that is just the foregone conclusion of where the Titans are going to go next, as we continue the Titans discussion after this. RKW on 104.5 The Zone is brewed by Scooters Coffee. Download the Scooters Coffee mobile app today to order ahead and save $2 off your first mobile order. Ramon back with us tomorrow. Kayla Anderson and Will Bowling, joined now by Justin Melo. You know him on Twitter at Justin_MNFL. Does a great job covering, Justin M_NFL, I should say. Does a great job covering the Titans and the NFL for the Draft Network. Justin, what's up, man? How are you?
Doing well. Day one of free agency in the books. We're getting started early this morning on day two. Is the sky falling yet? Have people calling for Mike Borgonzi to be fired? How's it going out there in Nashville?
Oh, they don't have a quarterback yet. What do you mean? We only play games in 6 months. They don't have a quarterback yet. Come on. It's terrible. Terrible. The Dan Moore deal, Justin, where we begin? 4 years, $82 million, $50 million guaranteed. It's a big price, but the market also dictated the value in a pretty barren left tackle market in free agency. What did you like? What did you not like about that move for the Titans?
Yeah, I think the Titans were willing to overpay to get league average tackle play from the position. Now, that might sound like a negative, but I don't know that the majority of Titans fans realize how much better that is than what they've gotten in recent years, right? Like, unfortunately, they missed on 3 picks in a row at the tackle spot. Now, we're going back multiple regimes. But when you miss on Isaiah Wilson, NPF, Dylan Radins, you've got to pay sometimes. And a new GM comes in and realizes that they didn't have enough there. Certainly, the head coach, Brian Callahan, was not pleased with the tackle play they received last season, especially at the right tackle spot. So they go out and pay a premium. As you said, tackles do not hit the market very often. At least good ones don't. And once the Rams re-signed Alaric Jackson and the Ravens re-signed Ronnie Stanley, Dan Moore was head and shoulders the best tackle available on the market. Now, they make him the 9th payest tackle. Again, it's certainly an overpay, but you're also going to upgrade 2 positions almost with one signing because, as we know, he's going to be playing left tackle. He's got more than 4,000 career snaps at left tackle. They're not asking him to move spots. And J.C. Latham, the rookie last year, who moved from right tackle to left tackle, is going to be doing the opposite and going back to his more natural position, which he played at Alabama. So they've upgraded left tackle. They've upgraded right tackle. He's going to come in and give them some good things.
So what do you make of J.C. Latham at right tackle? And obviously the experience he had at Alabama, well documented in 3 years there after he switched from IMG Academy on the left to right side. What about his skill set, Justin, is better on that side to make this line better moving forward?
Throughout the whole pre-draft process, before the Titans drafted him, I thought he was a right tackle through and through. I maybe have a bit of an old school evaluator, but when I see that size and frame, the ability to be a people mover in the run game, I think right tackle. Color me surprised when they decided they were going to play him at left tackle. Now, I eventually got on board with that like everyone else did. I spoke to a couple of his high school coaches. He had initially played left tackle at IMG Academy, one of the premier high school programs in the country. He goes to Alabama, becomes a right tackle. But Titans make the move. They felt like they didn't have a solution at either spot, per se. They decided to prioritize the left side of the line. That made sense to me. And I thought he held his own there. But I always felt he's more of a natural right tackle. Now, ideally, you wouldn't want to be asking this guy to switch sides again, right? That's typically not how you handle player development at the next level. But because he's so experienced on that right side and he was so natural there for Alabama, I think he's going to do this without any issue whatsoever. And I imagine they, talked about that with him throughout this offseason. Mike Borgonzi said it earlier, way before free agency opened, that they were open to both sides and that they would consider moving J.C. Latham back to right tackle if they felt the right solution became available on the left side. They obviously felt that happened with Dan Moore in a 4-year, $82 million deal. I think JC's going to have no problem with this. In fact, he may even feel even better about going back to his more natural spot.
Justin Melo of the Draft Network, great stuff. You can follow him and all of his work. He is on with us on RKW this morning talking the NFL draft, free agency, all the goodies. Now we're on the point of the line. I will say then, what will you guess that they'll do with that right guard spot?
Well, there are still some really good options available in free agency. They missed out on Will Fries. Reports are they were not in the mix for him at all. That was a massive contract he signed this morning with the Minnesota Vikings, 5 years, $88 million. So if you feel like the Dan Moore thing is an overpay, you can look at what these other guys are getting on the market on the O-line. Everyone is willing to overpay for quality offensive line play. There are still a couple of good players available at right guard. I wouldn't totally rule out re-signing, Dylan Radunz. You've upgraded the right tackle spot, again, by moving J.C. Latham there, so you feel better about what maybe Radunz can give you now that he's not worried about NPF, false starting and everything else that happened on the right side this past season. But I think that, you could look to upgrade as well. Mekhi Becton, who had a resurgent year with the Philadelphia Eagles at right guard this past year, is still on the free agency market. The Eagles, they've taken care of some of their own, right? They ripped up Saquon Barkley's contract, gave him a bigger payday. They did the same for linebacker Zach Bond, re-signing him to a huge deal before he could hit the market. I don't know that Mekhi Becton is in the plans there anymore at Philadelphia, or if it fits the budget. So that would be a huge. And now talk to me about that right side of Mekhi Becton and J.C. Latham. That possibility. You'd have one of the biggest right sides in all of football. There's also Tevin Jenkins with the Chicago Bears, who's still out there. He's definitely not going back to Chicago. They've already traded for their two new starting guards in Jonah Jackson and Joe Thuney over from Kansas City. So Tevin Jenkins is available. There are some recurring injury issues there, but when he's healthy, he has undoubtedly been a better football player than Dylan Radunz has. So there are some things out there in right guard. Kevin Zeitler, the veteran from the Detroit Lions, 34 years old, but had a great year last year in Detroit, has not shown any indication that he's declining due to age. So there are a lot of options out there at right guard, and I imagine the Titans try to come away with one of them perhaps today.
When it comes with the other move that they made yesterday, trying to start to fill up that linebacker room, Cody Barton comes over from the Denver Broncos. I think some are kind of scratching their heads when it comes to the fit, because you look at Kenneth Murray, not the greatest guy in coverage. You look at Cody Barton, maybe not the greatest guy in coverage. He's obviously a smart player, good run defender. But what are they planning to do here with two guys that are maybe similar?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it's unfortunate, in truth, that they had to make any investment at linebacker this offseason, but they did. They needed to. I mean, you look at what the previous GM did, bringing in Kenneth Murray last year, spending 2 draft picks on linebacker, albeit one of them a 7th-rounder. None of those moves really worked out, right? They didn't see enough from Cedric Gray or James Williams last year. Kenneth Murray, now entering a contract year, was a short-term deal, but he was considered a potential cap casualty. It looks like that's not going to happen, and they're going to hold on to him. It's tough to find guys that could cover at that spot in the NFL, and I don't know that they've got one. Otis Reese and Chance Campbell, in truth, might be the 2 best in-house options they have to be a quote-unquote coverage specialist. Now, it also depends on who you talk to. If you were choosing one of them between Cody Barton and Kenneth Murray to cover, you probably aren't going with Cody Barton, the player that they signed yesterday. My good friend James Foster on Twitter does some of the best evaluation work out there. I already had a phenomenal tweet on Cody Barton. Said, not a coverage specialist, but I wouldn't agree with Pro Football Focus coverage grading system. They certainly dinged him last year for giving up 48 catches on 56 targets. If you watched every target on Cody Barton, according to James Foster, really good awareness versus the screen and underneath targets, good at urgency, recovering against play action, good feet and understanding of route concepts. That matches with the run defender he is, right? As you said, Kayla, no doubt this is a high football IQ player. That does translate to coverage. It's sometimes the shortcomings in athleticism that might let him down. Again, I certainly wouldn't call him a coverage specialist, but I do think he's better in that area than Kenneth Murray is. And we'll see if they're able to make that partnership work. But I certainly have a couple reservations going into it.
Justin Melo of the Draft Network, cover the Titans as well for Broadway Sports Media, our guest this morning on RKW. So, Justin, who is at the top of your list now for the Titans entering day 2? Is there one fit you feel like is most important that needs to be a priority?
Well, I think safety and edge are ones that I'm a bit surprised they haven't dipped their toe into the market yet. At safety, Javon Holland this morning, a 3-year, $45 million deal with the Giants. I thought that was totally fair, not an overpay, and I thought the Titans would maybe be in on something like that. That is not top 5 safety money, and I do think Javon Holland is a borderline top 5 safety in the NFL. Not a lot left there at safety. Justin Reed is the remaining target you would potentially consider. Of course, he's got some history there with Mike Borgonzi in Kansas City. At edge, I think there are a couple of guys that would still make sense. Keeping with that Chiefs, topic, Charles Omenihu is a guy that was with Mike Borgonzi for a couple of years, played really well for them in 2023, was getting past an ACL this year, so there's a medical question. But you wonder if a year removed he's better in 2025. And there are a couple others. Veterans of Darius Smith, I think, would give them good snaps. Azeez Ujulari at edge, played for the Giants last year, had like 6 sacks despite playing behind a really good tandem in Brian Burns and Kayvon Thibodeau. So I look at safety, I look at edge, I look at right guard. I think there are still, especially at that edge and guard market, I think there are some good players available. When I look at safety, it's really Justin Reed and not much else. And wide receiver has also reached a critical level of concern after they didn't, sign any of those. I thought Josh Palmer was a really intriguing fit for them. They decided not to go that route. He goes to a smarter organization. Buffalo Bills was a fairly big deal, but they've missed out on receivers. They've missed out on safeties. I don't know there's a lot left they could do there, but they could still salvage something at guard and edge with some good targets available.
Justin, at quarterback, I know the Titans have been linked with Mac Jones and Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson is now a Dolphin. Mac Jones is still available. Is it Cam Ward or bust at this point, or what other options do you feel are valid at QB?
Yeah, it very well might be Cam Ward or bust at this point. It really depends on how much Mike Borgonzi can sell ownership and Chad Brinker on his long-term plan. Now, could they punt this thing to 2026? They could, but they'd also have to be prepared to deal with what I think might be a half-empty stadium for most of the year if the plan at quarterback is Mac Jones. To me, that would be extremely uninspiring. He's Mason Rudolph light, in all honesty. A lot of the similar traits where the bit of a noodle arm is not going to push the ball down the field, is a pre- and post-snap recognition guy, accurate guy. You feel a bit better about that, maybe with an improved O-line, now that the right tackle spot is not going to kill you all year long. You do think this line will be better, again, with Peter Skoronski and J.C. Latham getting better. It would be a better situation for Mac Jones than it was, say, a Mason Rudolph last year. But it's not going to excite anybody, right? It just isn't. There'd be a reason he'd be on his third different team in 3 years as a recent first-round pick. If they have a high grade on Cam Ward, then you draft him. I think it's that simple, and I think we're overcomplicating this conversation a little bit. He just completed his pre-draft visit with the Titans this past week. If they think Cam Ward is a franchise quarterback, then you rebuff any of the offers you're getting from the Giants at number 1 overall. You stick and pick. They were loosely linked to Russell Wilson yesterday. I'm not sure I'm buying that, and I'm not sure that prevents you from taking a quarterback anyway if you go that route based on what Russell Wilson has been in recent years. So certainly they were not in on Sam Darnold, it appears. Zach Wilson, as you said, now a Miami Dolphin. I mean, heck, that would have even been more exciting, in my opinion, than a Mac Jones. At least there's the variance of plays, right? Almost Will Levis-like in that degree. But certainly it's starting to feel like Cam Ward or bust territory. Or, if it's Mac Jones, then I'll call it how I see it. I think they're punting on 2025 and setting this thing up for 2026.
Yeah, I'd agree with you on that. Justin Melo of the Draft Network joining us this morning on RKW. No matter who the quarterback is, though, Justin, the facts is there's not many wide receivers right now in that room currently. You see Calvin Ridley. If you do look to the draft to maybe help with that situation, and you look at day 2 options, what do you think about guys like Savion Williams, Jaden Higgins, Dante Thornton even?
Yeah, there are going to be some good options on day 2 at wide receiver. Dante Thornton, certainly the Tennessee Volunteer, ran one of the fastest 40-yard dashes of any receiver at the Combine. He certainly had an element of speed. When you look at Jaden Higgins, the athleticism is super impressive at that size. Was one of the best performers at the Combine. He is a go-get-it kind of guy, and then at that size, to run a 4.47 40, a 39-inch vertical, I mean, carrying size with athleticism, super intriguing on day 2. Savion Williams, that's a guy that I'm very intrigued by, that I feel didn't quite reach his performance ceiling at TCU, but I do think is one of those prospects that could be a better NFL player than he was college player. I'll give you perhaps my favorite receiver in this draft, who I think deserves, is getting some love, but Jalen Royals from Utah State is a prospect that I'm borderline infatuated with. I mean, you watched him at the Senior Bowl. He's one of the more aggressive receivers at the line of scrimmage. He wants to get his hands on corners and create separation aggressively at the line. He's also outstanding after the catch in space. You get this guy the football in his hands. Has a little A.J. Brown to his game. I think that's still a sore spot. But what he can do after the catch is really, really special. I love the release package. It's very diverse. At the Senior Bowl, you're looking over at the ref. It's like, are they calling a flag on that? He's smart. He knows how to get his hands on corners within the contact window to create separation. He extends. He's not afraid to initiate contact. I'm a big fan of Jalen Royals, and I think he would give them something very different than what they have currently in Calvin Ridley, who's not great after the catch. Certainly not a tackle breaker in the open field. So they're going to have options on day 2. And I'll tell you this, now that they've addressed offensive tackle with Dan Moore, tackle was the most popular mock draft pick for them at 35 overall. That's obviously not going to be the case anymore. It could still be an edge, based on what they do here on the rest of the market. But all of a sudden, I think wide receiver might be at the top of the wish list at 35 overall.
He is Justin Melo, covered the Titans of Broadway Sports Media, and does a great job talking with draft prospects, breaking down the NFL draft for the Draft Network. Justin M_NFL, where you follow him on Twitter when the Twitter machine is working. Thank you, Justin. Good to catch up with you.
Pleasure is all mine.
Thanks, Justin.
Yes, sir. Justin Melo with us here this morning. All right, we've got some breaking NFL news. There has been a trade involving an AFC South team that we will tell you about coming up next. We wrap up your Tuesday morning RKW with some trade news in the AFC South. Ramon will be back with us tomorrow. Will Bowling, Kayla Anderson, Buck Rising up next. Kenyon Green is the latest offensive lineman to be traded away by the Houston Texans. The difference is he stinks. Laramie Tunsil did not stink. Kenyon Green notoriously stinks. Guard Kenyon Green to the Eagles in exchange for Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. The Eagles will receive a 5th-round pick, and the Texans will receive a 6th-round pick. Kenyon Green last season, a 38.6 grade from Pro Football Focus. That ranked him 131st out of 135 guards. He allowed 5 sacks, had 7 penalties, according to the good folks at Pro Football Focus. And I'm sure Jeff Stoutland will now turn him into an All-Pro because that's what they do in Philadelphia. Yep. He is the other Bill Callahan adjacent O-line coach. Imagine that means Mekhi Becton could be gone, and then it will be between Tyler Steen and Kenyon Green. Sounds like a Dr. Seuss book.
Very nice.
For the right guard of the Philadelphia Eagles.
I like what you said there, though. If they do feel like it's something that might be a project that Stoutland can work with, and he has worked miracles except with Andre Dillard, but nobody could work with Andre Dillard, then it probably made the most sense for them. When you look at the Houston Texans, though, in terms of just this offensive line, and we've seen the moves that they've made here recently, they've also have to have depth at some point, too. Yeah. And I just feel like there's got to be a plan there. With what's going on and their new offensive coordinator. We got to remember that, too. It's no longer Bobby Slowick there. It is Nick. Is it pronounced Caley or Callie? Yeah. I mean, and this is a guy who's unknown. Speaking of that, I mean, there's a lot of unknown in him, too. Yeah. So there's a lot of betting that you're doing, but you do add to your defensive side of the ball, which is really good and is going to continue to be really good, especially back there in the secondary.
Right guard, still a position of need then for Houston, as it is for the Tennessee Titans, who are looking there. I know Justin Melo mentioning just a minute ago with Mekhi Becton out there. If you were to sign Mekhi Becton here, you would have like the Decepticons at offensive line.
Dude.
Legitimately. With Dan Moore, big dude at left tackle, Peter Skronsky at left guard, Mekhi Becton, who is a converted tackle, who has now kicked inside and had a great season in Philadelphia. Spot Track estimating he'd make about $10.5 million average annual value, which means I would imagine he's making $14 or $15 million, considering the way those estimates are going and looking this offseason. And then with Latham at right tackle, are you willing to double dip in free agency at right guard, or is that going to need to be addressed in the draft, considering the money you spent on Dan Moore?
I don't know. That seems pretty enticing to me when you laid it all out there. And you talk about having to spend money. You do have to spend money. And if you do indeed have the plan to draft Cam Ward at quarterback and want to give him every opportunity to succeed this next season, that beefy O-line, adding Becton, that makes me feel a whole lot better.
It'd be interesting. Becton, a very good grade on RPOs last season. Certainly a bit of a different system that he would be running here versus the one in Philadelphia. I mean, it's hard to get, to me, super optimistic about that. Just because it's a lot of money to spend on 2 spots.
Right.
And, I mean, if you want to make the argument that you don't want to give a lot of money to Sam Darnold as a one-hit wonder, Mekhi Becton was a one-hit wonder. Mm-hmm. Just at a different position, right? Like at right guard. 6'7", 363. I mean, you're talking about one of the biggest guards to ever play guard in the history of the National Football League. The guy is an absolute unit.
He's a tank. You just feel like you'd have a bunch of bodyguards up front for you know, if you're whoever quarterback comes into this.
It's very much the Bill Callahan fit. Mm-hmm. You could take another risk and have, a young offensive line. Because Mekhi Becton will be 26 this season as well.
Still young.
So you could have Mekhi Becton and J.C. Latham together, and J.C. Latham would have one of the only humans who is bigger than him playing beside him. on the inside. Mekhi Becton, 3 sacks allowed last season, 4 penalties, a pass block grade of 63.6. according to PFF.
And real quick, like Justin Melo said, too, if they do decide to bring back Dylan Radins, it's because they do believe with a steady force on the other side of him that they can grow together and that he can be better than he was last year with an ever-revolving right tackle. I still think that that's an opportunity to do for them, especially if there's not a market for him.
Right.
They did like him last year.
I'll be honest. I'm starting to accept that Cam Ward's going to be a Tennessee Titan.
Yeah.
We've talked about it. We've broken it down. There's no more, there's no really tangible Russell Wilson interest.
Right.
There's no tangible Aaron Rodgers interest that we've seen going to Pittsburgh. You're not in Sam Darnold. You're not going for Justin Fields. I am worried about it, and I don't like it.
Mm-hmm.
But considering the cards you have now, it does feel like what the Titans are going to need to do, because I just cannot get excited about Mac Jones being a reclamation project.
No.
I don't believe in him to be another Darnold-like guy. And now that you can't get Darnold,
sure,
I don't think you can draft Abdul Carter at 1. I think you now are going to need to go Cam Ward.
Absolutely.
And I don't like it.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to like it. That's fine. But I think accepting now that it might happen, I think we all probably are starting to learn that if you don't even like him.
I know.
I
would like to like having the number 1 pick. Like I am not happy at all about the year the Titans decided to stink. I am really, really, really not happy about it. Part of me just wishes that Joe Milton hadn't gone off against the New York Giants in that last game. And this could be an easier choice to just take Abdul Carter and be done with it. And I would have rather had Abdul Carter and one of these veteran quarterbacks at 3, but it is what it is at this point.
Mm-hmm.
It does very much feel like I would be very surprised if Cam Ward is not the pick by this point.
And I truly believe, Will, they went into this whole process. And again, things can still change. I do think they went into this process with an open mind and saw how dominoes fell. But the way the dominoes are falling, this is really the best opportunity, the best choice for the Titans to make.
It does not bode well, the fact that the Titans were so open about wanting to trade back and are now likely not going to trade back.
Mm-hmm.
That does not give me a lot of confidence in Cam Ward and the Titans' evaluation of him. Daniel Jones has landed
Colts?
with the Indianapolis Colts.
Yeah. Okay.
There you go. Breaking news on the way out. Former Giants quarterback Daniel Jones is signing with the Colts on a 1-year deal. The Vikings wanted to retain Jones, according to Tom Pelissero, who finished last season on their practice squad. Instead, he will compete with Anthony Richardson in Indy. I think that is a competent move by the Colts.
Mm-hmm.
Something that's rare.
Yep. Makes sense.
That is the show, and that is your Tuesday morning. We will have Rhett Bryan with us tomorrow. We will have much, much more on the SEC tournament as well, which starts tomorrow.
Ooh.
Tomorrow, the official beginning of the new league year. We will have champagne and streamers for you, the party hats for the beginning of the new year. Tomorrow, Buck Rising got you covered up next. A great day to keep it locked in on the Zone. Once again, just like I know you did yesterday. Cover 2, 3HL, Buck Rising. We got you covered on the Zone, and Buck takes over after this.